actually $2 less. To move right into the wastewater rates. On the wastewater rates, again, this is the amount that I've proposed here in the green column. And when we compare that to what the ordinance was, it's about $2.02 less on base rate and 86 cents less on the volumetric rate. And so that equates from what our current rates are on a 7,000 gallon per month. It's an increment of about $2.60 a month for a 7,000 gallon water user. Then we move right into the solid waste, and here again we've always had the disparity between the alley pickup and the curbside pickup. So I'm proposing a $2 increase for the curbside service, $4 for alley pickup, and then again the same thing for multifamily 2 and 4. And then on commercial accounts, I'm proposing a $4 increase for the first cubic yard, and then each additional cubic yard, 50-cent increase. And I'll show you a little bit more here on this next slide what's driving that. In this budgeted column here, I've already factored in those increases into the revenues. And as you can see, our projected ending fund balance for fiscal year 18 is only 42 days. We would like to have a 60-day fund balance, that's the target, but that only gets us to 42. And those, I know, are substantial increases, but I feel that they're necessary just to maintain that. And without further increases, when we get into 19, we would be drawing down to a 30-day fund balance. And of course, in 19, we have the opportunity to renegotiate our rate with Republic. So there could be some cost reduction possibilities there. We don't know.
But not likely.
Not likely, and especially if we don't change to once a day pickup.
If we don't what, I'm sorry?
If we didn't change to 1 a day pickup, there's probably not much chance that there'd be.
Once a week.
I'm sorry, once a week. Okay.
Why don't we, Jimmy, what was after this?
I was going to go
Yeah,
into the general.
okay, let's go back. So while we're on the water, wastewater, and solid waste, we kind of needed your all's direction on if you're wanting us to go ahead and include those, you know, with a rate increase. I think when we had the workshop a couple of weeks ago, y'all indicated that you wanted to go, we discussed with you where the utility fund was, and especially with the $1 million, as you recall from Joe Pool Lake. It seemed like, you know, your consensus then was to let's hold that in reserve for a future AMI project, and you indicated you wanted us to look at what the rates would be if we were to just pass along the rate increases from Dallas Water Utilities and TRA. So that's what we've done. There's no rate increase built into this for our system, and our CIP is funded for the next couple of years, so we're comfortable with these rates, but we wanted to, this is where we needed your all's direction then on this, that this is what you want us to do.
This would hold $1 million in advance for the meters.
Yes, sir.
So there would be no future surprises, like we need, like we're down $1 million, $2 million, we need to make it up in rates. That's not looming in the future. If you just,
I hope not. I don't think so. I mean, a lot of it can depend on, you know, whether you have a really wet year. I mean, if we have a really wet year and our water sales drop, then we could see some significant revenue reductions there. But that's not, you know, we would adjust to that, try to adjust. But I don't think there's anything. You know, we look at the 5-year CIP on water and wastewater, and we have those plugged in, and so for at least for the next couple of years, it's funded, not the full 5 years, but the next couple of years it is.
And again, we anticipate the current process that Dallas Water Utilities is typically going to be going up 5 to 6% per year, and TRA, while they had initially projected going up about 9.5%, we've seen more like a 3 to 4%. And I've reflected that in these rate increases. That's why I've lowered them less than what we had in the original ordinance.
3 to 4% a year? TRA?
TRA, that's what we've been trending the last 2 years. And part of that is that we've been very aggressive with our I&I projects, doing pipe bursting and other things to prevent that infiltration and inflow, which has reduced our rates. In fact, we just got a memo from TRA that the last 4 months of this fiscal year, actually it crosses over into next year because their fiscal year doesn't align with us. The last 4 months of their fiscal year, we're going to be having less money that we're paying into TRA because our rates, our flow rates have been so low going into the plant, lower than what we had projected.
I know.
Infiltration and inflow, it's when you have high propensity for groundwater where it's surrounding the pipes, and the pipes are flowing, and so it acts as a vacuum and it just sucks the groundwater in, and that increases you're passing more water through the meter than what's really going down the sewer because you've got holes and cracks in your pipe.
And also get infiltration and infill through manholes, and so you recall that's why we do a manhole rehabilitation program every year, is also to try to seal those manholes better.
And occasionally we'll have a person tie the roof drain in the sanitary sewer, so just crazy happens.
Why do they do that?
Get rid of the water.
They don't want it there, don't
It's just a way for the water to get out. So they put it in the sanitary sewer.
And again, I handed out what I had given you all in the other budget workshop as a TML survey. I think most of you have it out. You're writing on it. And that indicates how we stand compared to the TML survey of cities across Texas.
I like this plan of just going up every year what Dallas TRA does. The same percent that they go up, we go up. It's a lot easier to explain to constituents.
Yeah, and as long as we can maintain, you know, healthy fund balance, and I think we've got our CIP in line with that, so that can happen for the next few years.
Okay, I agree with Dennis, and it will show that we're monitoring it and we're trying to keep them rated as low as we can, yet maintain the level that we need to maintain. So, but just like, we can't vote on it, but like a kind of a nod if you like the way we're going. Got it? Okay with that? Okay.
It's, I guess, better than,
Well, I think that the good thing there too is, as Richard pointed out, you know, where the ordinance structured that 5-year phase-in rate, we're below that, and we were this current year, we will be again next year. So I think that shows too that we're trying to be very diligent with our costs, and we've been doing better than what was projected a couple of years ago when that 5-year plan was put into place. So we'll continue each year to try to do that to get below that.
When we passed the ordinance, we promised that we would look at this on a year-to-year basis, and that's what we've done. We've held to our promise and been able to vary below that ordinance rate, which is a positive thing.
Our charge to use this don't have any major water main break. Thank you.
That was only a 12-inch line. That was not, that was a real big one.
I want to see what happened with that 96 line.
Okay, we'll move into the general fund, and what I wanted to do is to point out a couple things. I know that there's a lot of numbers here and there's a lot of complexity, but the real thing that I want to talk about is on public works, this line that goes right across here. You can see that that line is increasing significantly, and it's not because we're hiring more people or we're doing crazy things. This is including the pavement management. And so there's quite a bit of dollars that are dedicated there, and I'll begin to break those dollars down. You can see that in fiscal year 17, we're going from 5.6 million in 17 to 6.8 million in 18, and that's because we're funding the pavement management in that. And then in those out years, we're continuing to include pavement management funding there. But we're also going to find out that it's basically an unfunded project, if you will. So the way that we've attacked that for this year is that we took $1 million and we reserved that in the innovation fund up here. And so that's been included in our revenues to help offset this increase in fiscal year 18. So we kind of sort of have 18 covered, if you will, but not completely, because the mandates for pavement management were about 2.6 million, if I recall correctly. And so we got $1 million that's coming in from here, but the rest of the funds above and beyond what we normally budget, which is about $500,000. So there's about another 760,000 or so that we're pulling out of the fund balance, basically to make 18 work right now, which is very much hamstrings us to doing anything else. And so you can see that we have the projection of ending fiscal year 18 with 87 days of fund balance, which is a nice hefty fund balance. We're still $1 million above our 75-day reserve. But that would go away into the negative very quickly because we have no mechanism to fund that pavement management. And so when we move over into 19, you see that we draw down to a 46-day fund balance. And this is with, projected revenues continuing to increase, sales tax, property values, etc. So it's a rather bleak picture if you look at it that way. So let's look at this from a graphical standpoint. In fiscal year 17, the amounts that we put into for the street maintenance, we had this historical amount, which has been right about 523,000. You can see that all the way across. We had additional general fund amounts that we used from fund reserve to make up what we wanted to do in fiscal year 17. And again, we've got about $760,000 we're pulling from fund reserve that's over here in 18. And then we've got the $1 million that we transferred in from the innovation fund to make 2018 be funded for the street maintenance program. Going forward in 19, 20, and 21, and keep in mind that these street maintenance costs don't just end after 21. We're not done. These types of costs that you see here that are unfunded in this purple amount, which is 3.4, 3.2, and 2.9, those types of numbers will continue on out into the future if we're going to keep our streets where they need to be.
But isn't that also, aren't you also going on the assumption that you're going to spend everywhere else at the same clip?
When you're talking about the previous slide with the fund summaries,
I'm
and
talking
the
about
out years, or what?
in the years forward. If you're spending at the same rate that you are now, that would be true. Sometimes we cut back on something, or we don't have to do a front-end loader every year, or, I mean, there's some pretty hefty spending we've been doing.
That's what well, we can talk about specific items like equipment, but that, for example, that piece of equipment is replacing one that's 15 years old. So,
Got it.
and our equipment, is based on the length of lifespan. So, I don't think we're spending, yes, we can cut back. So the question is where do we cut back? Where do you want to cut services? And
We also bought a
that's-
fire truck.
Yes, and we've talked about
Expensive
that
one.
because, right, they
We
are
also
they're very
bought
expensive.
all new IT stuff, changed over the system. I don't know how much that was. But, I mean, we've had some pretty big expenditures. So I'm just saying that that is going with the assumption that we're gonna continue to spend at the same rate.
Right, the budget and looking at the out years is based on providing the same level of service that we are providing now. So if the
Or-
council wishes to reduce service levels in some areas,
I
then
don't think you have to reduce service levels. I think you don't always spend at the same amount.
that's reducing service levels then, because if we don't have the equipment to do our jobs, then we're not able to provide those
But you don't,
services.
you don't replace those things every year.
We're not replacing
I
everything
know.
every year.
So that's what I'm saying.
Can I ask you a question?
Okay.
Is-
Yes, ma'am.
Are we coming back, are we taking out, like, say, you're familiar with Madrid and San Juan and Flamingo and filling streets? Are we taking those out and we're putting in concrete streets?
I don't know specifically what those will be if those are in the area, if those are needing to be totally reconstructed, I don't know what we will come back with on that.
Okay, so there's not a plan yet on
Not
the
on
streets?
capital replacement of the streets, no,
Okay.
we don't have that yet.
And so with this increase, is this setting it up where we need to have a bond and, to pay for these streets?
I would not recommend that because, what we talked about in the workshop, remember if you will, when we talked about bonds, you don't want to issue debt that's longer than the useful life of whatever it is you're buying. So this is maintenance.
But then the gentleman that was given the presentation said if you come back and you build new streets, like a concrete street, then you would issue bonds.
Right, we would issue bonds
So I
for
was
street
wondering if we had a plan
reconstruction.
for that. But we don't have a plan for that yet?
We do have a 5-year plan, a 5-year CIP that we're looking at of what streets will need to be reconstructed. And so, but we don't have
So
a
this is
funding.
above and beyond what we're going to use, what if we do a bond? This is
Correct.
another-
And that's what, when we've been talking about pavement management all along, we've tried to make sure that we differentiated and said, this is just the maintenance aspect,
Okay.
not the
So this is just
reconstruction.
maintenance?
This is just maintenance. Now, we will redo the pavement management study after 2021, and we'll see where we're at again. But remember when we did it, and we came back with an average pavement condition index, and where did the council want to be at, and we picked the number. And so these costs are based on maintaining that average condition index throughout the
So
city.
you think it's possible to do $4 million worth of pavement management in Duncanville every year? Is that,
That is a question that's Public Works, and, there's a lot of streets that can be done, and that's a lot of that is different types of work, like overlay, some of it is crack sealing, so there's varying costs depending on what method we go with. Now, the other thing too, remember, when we look at this, is we always we look at our other projects as well, water projects, wastewater projects, to make sure that we're not repaving a street and then tearing it up. So some things get slipped out, some things get brought up ahead. One of the options with this, and when we're talking about funding, is an option is to defer it, to not do that level, to push that level down.
but then, isn't it like $1 or $4 if you do maintenance and if you defer it, it's $25?
When the condition of the street gets to a point where it's deteriorating rapidly, then you're into a lot higher cost to replace that street versus maintaining it and keeping it on that curve where it's deteriorating slower.
And I know it's not possible, but I'd like to maybe later see the justification for the purple in maintenance, just what the plan is. Because maybe I've seen it before, but I don't remember. And I know it has nothing to do with budget.
Okay, you're wanting to see the list of streets that are in that
Yeah,
makeup, or?
Yeah, so for like 2019, what are we going to plan, what are we going to be planning to do? And why do we need the money to do that, and, that type of.
I think that's all part of the pavement management.
Yeah, it is
Right.
part of the pavement management. When,
Oh, okay. That's all
The
part of the
street-
I can come up here later and look at it. It's significant, but if it needs it, it needs it.
Well, and remember, when we first did the pavement management study, and we said, here's the 5-year projection based on the program of what it's saying that's recommending to do this amount of streets and this
Yeah,
is the.
Yeah, but I think we
approximate
were all
cost.
hoping that it wasn't really that.
Yes, I know. But that was why we took $1 million out of the FY16 fund reserve, put it in the innovation fund to pre-fund 18, which is what we're gonna do. But we've been saying that, you know, we don't have a funding source, a permanent funding source
So that,
for
so in
this.
2019, we're looking at raising rates, property rates,
Well,
or?
We'll go ahead and go to that slide. That's the next thing that we're talking about. So the options of what you have, of how to approach this.
Okay, so what we've done is we've modeled,
Let me just mention real quick, sorry, let me interrupt. So one option is, don't do it. Defer it. Push that level down to some lower number. And that means pushing those streets out farther, and over time that condition index is gonna drop below where we wanna be at. But that is an option. So if you wanna pay for it, we've got some different options here.
Well, and remember too, you're not talking about 80 or 90% of having the grade streets. You're talking about a number much lower than that. What, 65, 70, something like
75,
that.
I think, 75 or average on the major streets.
Yeah.
okay, so moving ahead, what I've done is I've modeled out if we implemented a street maintenance fee, how this would look. So we have approximately 14,316 accounts, which include residential, commercial, and apartment units. I excluded or segregated out churches and schools. I don't know how the council would feel about implementing a maintenance fee, street maintenance fee for churches and schools. So I segregated that out separately. At $7 a month, you could raise $1.2 million, which would be close to, well, less than the 3.4 million, less than half. At $10 a month, you would be right about half of what we would need to fund that unfunded amount. If you included schools and churches, again, that gets you to $1.2 million and $1.730 million if you look at that proposed street maintenance fee.
That's not Great Hill, but some cities do, as we heard this morning. Houston certainly has a street maintenance fee that applies to churches and schools.
And so again, I don't know, you guys want to talk about that a minute? You know, how you feel about applying that to churches and schools. We discussed it a little bit earlier in a staff meeting, and we feel like probably a lot of people that go to church would already be a citizen paying that fee, so that might end up being a double whammy for them. Schools, probably not, because they're running school buses on our streets and, you know, fairly heavy.
Have we looked at the number if we just do one and not both?
Yeah, well, yeah, I could, you'd essentially peel off about 61.
Probably about half that difference looks
Richard,
like.
what are we doing right now with the range fee? We pick up churches and schools.
Yes, I believe we do. I'd have to go back.
We ought to pick up churches and schools on this as well. in my opinion.
But you're not talking about a significant amount of money.
No, schools, they do a lot of wear and tear on the streets,
Since the bus bonds in the city.
a lot.
I'm in favor of the schools and not the churches, but the schools, the buses with a lot of damage.
Okay. Well, I can very easily model that. Again, it's be about half of that increase, or a little bit less. So what I'm hearing is consensus, this includes schools, but not churches.
Kind of trying to hurt both, I don't know.
I put both in.
Dennis, then,
I put both.
Okay, so,
And I go to church in Duncanville.
all right. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to sort of add up all of these increases that we've been talking about so that we could look at what a monthly impact we would have on our citizens. And so at the $7 street maintenance fee and at the $10 street maintenance fee, I have to kind of break these things out because you got different rates for curbside and alley pickup. So a curbside person at 7,000 gallons, they would have a $2.08 for the water, $2.60 for sewer, $2 for their solid waste garbage fee increase, and a $7 street maintenance fee. So that'd come out to $13.68 that they would pay more per month than they currently do at the moment. For alley, it'd be $15.68 per month more. If we went to the $10 fee, then that'd be $16.68 and $18.68 per month. So that gives you an indication of what kind of impact all these fees would have.
With $10, that only gets us halfway there?
It gets us about halfway there. And I've made the calculation that $19 would get us in pretty good shape. It'd get us within striking distance of, that's about what it would take. So let's look at this in another fashion. Let's look at this from the standpoint of property tax. We got $2,078 million is that's my estimate of where we're going to end the year after we get our final tax numbers in. So that revenue for a penny on the tax rate is $207,827. And so I've always modeled, what a penny does on a $100,000 home and a $200,000 home. And so the monthly impact on that to single-family residents would be about 83 cents versus $1.67. And so if we went to about close to a little less than halfway, I just picked 1.2 million because that was about what the $7, the lowest amount on the street maintenance fee. That would be about 6 cents on the tax rate, and that'd be $1,246,000. And so that monthly impact on citizens, if you raise the tax rate 6 cents, would be $498 on a $100,000 home and $10.02 on a $200,000 home. So our current tax rate's 0.758447 per 100 in valuation, and if we did a 6 cent increase, that'd be 81.8447 per 100. So it gives you an idea of what it would take tax rate wise to raise that type of revenue.
So this is the raise, this is in addition to, or?
No, this
These
is
are
giving you an alternative.
Okay.
This is an alternative way of
Raising
funding,
So this is.
funding the street
This gets it
maintenance.
halfway to?
This is approximately halfway, a little less than halfway.
But this, and help me if I'm wrong, how does this impact the apartments?
Well, it wouldn't impact the apartments very much at all because I'm sure you'd see, their property values are taxed and
Right.
through rent. I'm sure that at some point you'd see that pass along as rent increases to the inhabitants of the apartments. Because the apartment owners are not going to be in a position of losing money.
Some of the pros and cons, I think, from my perspective of the two options, the fee versus property tax. On the fee side, I think it's it's an easier sell to people to say this is what it's going for, and it's on their water bill as street maintenance fee, and we dedicate it to that. And it doesn't get lost in the other things. With a property tax, plus then it's a straight fee across the board to everybody. Basically every household, every water customer is paying the same amount. When you put it on the property tax, then it's going to vary by the tax valuation. Some people are going to pay more, some people are going to pay less. It's included in the property tax rate, so it's kind of lost in with all the other things that go into the general fund. And then the third thing is with the uncertainty right now with the property tax caps that the legislature might put in place, I just think that changing anything on the tax rate it can be problematic, more problematic.
And the fee would not affect the tax rate.
Right, no, it would not.
And a point you made earlier, Kevin, was that those people that have different values of homes who may pay more or less are still using the same amount of street, still using probably the same cars. So another point of fairness.
Of course, we probably know what the legislative session's gonna do, so it'll be out by the time we vote on this budget.
Well, but it would, if you went with the street maintenance fee, what the state legislature does will not affect that.
Right?
Yeah.
Yet.
So Kevin's kind of already alluded to these options. Essentially, if you approve a street maintenance fee to partially fund the unfunded projections based on the pavement management study, and we could start at 7 and 10, but that's going to have to increase in future years. If you wanted to approve a street maintenance fee to fully fund the unfunded projects, $19 a month would get you there. And then the option that we've talked about already, that Kevin mentioned, is just not fund the pavement management study and let the streets continue to deteriorate and get in worse shape, which will eventually cost more dollars to fix at some point in time.
I personally don't think you want to look at $19 then initially. You do the lower rate, if you have to raise it, you have to raise it.
How will the community be informed of this?
We would have to put together
You're gonna
some
tell
type of a campaign
Not you.
to inform the public,
I would suggest a town hall type meeting that we can explain it.
They don't wanna come to that. That's the only thing. They don't get it.
But we would want to do that and make sure that we're explaining it, but we need your direction right now, because, Richard, will you go back to the fund summary sheet? Because if you look on the 17-18 budget, it looks really good. We got $1 million above where we want to be at on the fund reserve of 75 days. But knowing that we're really going negative next year, this budget does not include any kind of additional recurring costs that we talked about in the workshop. So no new personnel, no compensation, and we're going to get ready to talk about compensation now. And that's why, yes, we could fund 18 based on our fund reserve, but if we don't put something into place now, I'm not willing to make any other changes to the budget that are recurring costs, because knowing that we're going into the red next year. If we can put something into place now this year and start building for next year, then that gives us some more cushion to do some things with compensation and personnel, and gives us, starts building that fund earlier, if you will.
So this was not funded at all in years past, correct?
If I can go back for just a second to my graph.
Okay, I guess where I'm going is, if it wasn't funded in any way, how were streets maintained?
They were deteriorating.
That it was maintained, it was maintained at a low level.
They were doing them as the ones broke down, they'd be taken care of,
So,
then do the whole city.
right, so as a lot of cities have done, is they did what they could afford in maintenance. And streets were done based on maybe who complained the most about the potholes, or some method of picking the streets. Staff looked at it and decided that these streets needed to be maintained more. But there was not an objective criteria and a full evaluation done of each street. That's what we did with the pavement management study. It went in and did an analytical objective of those streets by looking at the subgrade also, and then ranking those on a pavement condition index. And then from that, feeding all that data into the system, comes out with, here's the ones then that need to be maintained sooner rather than later. So you're not looking at you're not analyzing just the surface condition of it, but you're also looking at the subgrade condition of it. So it's a more objective analytical method, if you will. And every city that's doing these studies now, which a lot of cities are doing them, are finding that they are underfunding their maintenance, and they are having to figure out how to get funding, or how to maintain the streets at the level that they need to be, or the streets just continue to deteriorate, and you can get into a condition like Arlington did several years ago, where their streets were in very bad shape, and they're in a very deep hole trying to get out of it.
I don't think they had any excuse for all the things they have going on in Arlington. That was-
But it's just like with everything else, you have all these needs and you don't have the money to do everything you want, so things get deferred, and some things get deferred. The streets are one of those things that just kind of got deferred. But like I said too, you know, when we did this study here, you know, we were in pretty good shape. Duncanville's in good shape with the streets. But we want to be able to stay where we're at. We don't want to lose ground. So, you know, I mean, I don't want to take that away and say that we didn't do a good job. We did.
Well-
Compared to a lot of other cities, Duncanville has done a great job, but we're still not spending enough on maintenance. Pardon?
No, I just said previous public works.
Previous
Did
public
a
works,
fine
public works
job.
directors, right.
That's what the problem
That's-
was. They drive the streets and this one's got potholes in it. We need to pay
And I mean,
overlays.
you did an analysis, I mean, some type of
We
analysis.
drove every crew.
Right.
We just didn't have all the scientific.
You didn't have the ground penetrating radar to go down and
And
look.
that's probably why we're in better shape than a lot of other cities. But the thing is to answer your question, Councilman LeBon, we have been funding it, but we've been funding at this level, and we need to be at this level. And we don't have a funding mechanism for that extra level. So we can either reduce that level, or we find a way to pay for it, or we at least meet halfway and fund what we can with you know, like an increase of $7. That will get us partway there, and that would buy us a little more time to see where we're at next year.
So for what we're considering is just really for FY18, and then at the next budget proposal, we'll evaluate it, maybe look at something else. Is that what you just said?
My recommendation would be to put something into place this year so that we can start building that fund. If we raise $1.2 million, and then with what we have in excess fund reserve this year, we can allocate some more to FY19. And so that will, you know, maybe we can end up funding FY19 fully without having to do any more. But next year we'll look at it again and see where we're at, and if we need to adjust, we will. Which is why I'm not really proposing to go, we wouldn't propose to go to the full $19, but we want to let you know that's what it is right now. But I wouldn't propose to go to that because one, it's a huge sticker shock to people, and then
Yeah.
secondly, we'd rather kind of take a little at a time and see where we're at. Again, evaluate next year where we're at.
And it's still a whole lot of, it's unclarified issues with the water bills already. Tired of getting inundated with explaining water bills.
Well, I think we need to be conscious of costs and home costs. I mean, we have to. Because they're already, I mean, right now, we don't have what they're gonna do federal either, but he's talking about cutting Social Security. And a lot of the people that live here are on Social Security.
And we are very cost conscious. And we look at that when we are buying, you mentioned vehicles. When we're buying vehicles, we have a vehicle plan in place based on the expected lifespan of every single piece of equipment. But when we look at it, we evaluate based on its maintenance too, whether we can extend the life, and if we do, we extend it. And so that pushes it out farther. So we don't buy equipment just because it's X number of years,
No, you
unless there's a
misunderstood me.
requirement to
You
do.
misunderstood me. That's not what I'm talking about. I was talking about that this is based on us spending the same amount that we are now recurring. And, I mean, there is a possibility that in some areas we can cut back, and that because when you do buy that equipment, you don't have to buy it the next year, and the next year, and the next year.
But the money that you're putting in is into a fund based upon the average life of that piece of equipment. So you're accruing money. We don't go borrow money to buy new fire trucks or squad cars. We have it prepaid in a fund. and it averages out. So the hit is gonna be somewhat smoothed out that way, because if you got a fire truck that's go for 10 years on the average, then we're putting 1/10 of that in a year.
When we meet each year to go over our fleet, we meet with the fleet maintenance manager and all the department heads that have rolling stock, and we go through every single piece of equipment that we have, and our fleet manager will give us a report, and more often than not, we extend things out and don't replace it when it's scheduled to be replaced. Oftentimes, we get 3, 4, 5 years past expected life because we do a good job of maintaining it. But at the same time, we've already got funds, because the departments are pre-funding the amounts into the fleet replacement fund. So they're paying as you go, so to speak, so that we've got that money up front when it's time to replace something.
So, yeah, we're not, every year we're buying vehicles, we're buying equipment, but that's just because we're replacing a portion of our fleet every year. We're not trying to replace the whole fleet at one time. We would not be able to afford to do that.
One of my favorite things is the spreadsheet that tracks all that, and it's humongous.
And that's one of the things that we've done with computers as well now. We have an IT replacement fund, but again, computers last a certain amount of time and you have to replace them. But we're trying to extend that out as long as we can, but we're trying to even out those costs by funding it and then purchasing them as we need to. So we do try very hard to look at cost savings and where we can reduce. And as we've said before, for the number of personnel that we have, staff-wise, we run a fairly lean organization compared to other cities our size, and yet we still provide a lot of those very same services.
We probably need to move on.
Sure.
Anybody got any other questions?
Not on this.
Okay.
Okay, well,
Do you want to, we got one more topic, or did you want to break for the pictures, or?
what,
Yeah, I know, he had
That's
texted me,
not-
so he was.
I would rather hold off and just apologize to her for having to be here a little bit longer.
Okay, Kristen said talk rest week at 6, so let me go ahead and let her know then.
Good.
Do you- go ahead.
So compensation, follow-up to our June workshop. I wanted to start with showing you kind of a snapshot of where we are currently. The benchmark positions I compare in our 15 sister cities that we compare to. Variety of benchmark positions that equally compare across different cities. Continually lag in the police and the fire side of things with respect to those 15 cities. I broke out the from a Best Southwest standpoint on the police and fire, just to show you where we rank out in the police and fire step pay plan. You can see there kind of what that minimum pay is, what that maximum pay is, and kind of where
Excuse
we
me,
are.
do
Yes.
you have all the cities that you used?
Yes.
Can we see?
I don't have them on here, but the cities that we do, outside of the Best Southwest, we have Frisco, Capel, McKinney, Grand Prairie, Rockwall, Rowlett, Little Elm.
Mansfield.
There's 15 total that we do compare to. And we tried to pick those that are equal in size or comparable in size to our population here in this.
When you say number of classes?
Frisco's
what
No,
does that
neither
mean?
is-
What does that number?
Well, that's just, I took,
Farmers
we have
Branch is
various
closed.
positions, exempt, non-exempt, police and fire, and that's just how many number of positions that I used to compare. There were 18 exempt positions I used in the survey, there were 28
okay.
non-exempt positions I used, and just the
that's not-
percentage that you see is just where we, the difference between our range and the average in the market. So we're not, we're doing pretty good on the general employee side, but on the police and fire, in comparison to those, the average of those 15 cities, that's kind of where we come across. We've definitely made strides in the last couple of years to make pay plan adjustments, especially on the police and fire side. So in the Best Southwest, it's kind of our goal to at least be the best in the Best Southwest. kind of a salary history here so you can see what we have done in the last 2 years and what increases we've been able to give. In this current fiscal year, we did give a 3% across the board for general employees, and we made a pay plan adjustments in police and fire in the upper ranks. And the previous fiscal year, we did implement compensation study recommendations as well as an increase to police and fire. Just gives you a history there. What we are proposing, now this is not in the base budget at all, but what we are looking to propose here is do a 2% across the board for general employees. That general fund impact comes to $115,000, and that does include taxes and retirement and all of that. And then on the public safety side is to increase the pay plan by 2% at all levels. So that total impact to general fund with the two combined comes to $329,000. And that is a recurring cost. So that's what we are looking to.
So what about the merit pay? Is that not,
No, that does not include a merit increase. That's just across the board.
is that in the budget then, the merit?
No, none of that is built into the budget at all.
So
So what's built into the budget is,
Okay, so what we're looking at, we've revised our performance plan, performance management system. This will be the first year under that new system. So after this year, then next year, we would look at tying that to a merit increase. And so what we would then do is look at, it would still be somewhat similar to this. We would have to set aside an amount of money for merit increases in it, but it would, instead of being across the board, it would be a merit increase, but it would still be based on some lump sum of money.
something to note here again, when it comes to general employees, we are a range-based pay plan. So if you don't move within your pay plan, you're stuck there. But on the public safety side, we do have step pay plans, which are built into the budget, where those increases are automatic within the police and fire. So that is already built into the current budget. But these increases, of course, this is additional to that.
And that's civil service.
What's
Now,
that?
That's civil
Yes,
service.
that's civil service.
This 2%, particularly in police and fire, that's in the step plan, so that
Yes,
doesn't
it's-
include.
So we're talking about adjusting the minimum and the maximum and everything in between 2%. So everything just moves up 2%,
All the way up in the chief?
all the way through the chain, all the way to the
Chief.
assistant chief.
Okay.
No, the chiefs are not part of the step pay plan.
Yeah,
They're in a range like every other general employee.
but everybody below the chiefs are in a step plan.
Right, correct,
Same way in the fire department.
correct.
So that, how does that address the percentages, like you had the range, the minimum, the
Mhm.
max, how does that,
Um,
that?
I have not actually calculated, if we implemented those changes, how that would make us fair, particularly in the market. But this is always a moving target, you have to keep in mind, because, Cedar Hill's gonna make, an increase, DeSoto's looking at making an increase, Lancaster wants to make an increase. I mean, when the market moves, everybody kind of tries to move with it, so it's not like we're always chasing that moving target, so.
But as we know, and as we've said before, especially on the police and fire side, we continue to have challenges in filling those positions. And we're not the only ones. I mean, every city is having those problems with public safety.
Dallas is down
$400.
They are. And so there's a lot of competition, especially in the Metroplex for police and fire. Secondly, there's fewer applicants. Everybody is seeing fewer applicants for those positions now. So it's competitive. And so we don't want to lose our position, at least in the best Southwest. We want to be competitive. We're not going to compete with all of the big cities and stuff. But we lose people to them, but we're not going to be able to pay like they do. But we don't want to lose position where we're at in the best Southwest. That's why we're proposing 2%. That will move those pay plans. So it'll move the minimum and maximums. The steps within it, they will still get those step increases, and those steps vary 3-4% between steps, and then they'll also get the 2% movement. On the general employees, it is not changing the minimum and maximum of the ranges. It's only moving people within those ranges. So we make a new hire 6 months from now, they're still coming in at whatever that minimum is for that pay grade. But for police and fire, that minimum will move up. So that, then when we're recruiting, we're advertising a little higher salary than what we're at right now. So that's what our thinking is with what's being proposed.
Do you have any questions, Bob?
So right now, that's not built in. And
I want to see the cities. I want to see the cities that we're comparing to.
we provided those to you before when we first did the pay plan study with the consultant a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I didn't agree with them then. I want to see them again.
Okay,
on
and as we
PMM.
said, you know, I mean, what we looked at was, again, we're taking an average of all of those cities and looking at where we are, especially, but we give weighting to the best Southwest. We're not trying to be at the top, we're not trying to be at the bottom. In fact, we're trying to be within 5%.
Well, that's why we want to see them.
Okay, we can give you the list of cities, you know, and each one of those has their own set of benchmark cities. And
Right.
so, it's,
It's just helpful to see where we are.
These comparisons you just showed us were best Southwest cities or all the cities?
It's all of them.
both.
Right, so the
The
top
top
really
is
is all 15 cities that we use. The bottom is just taking out the best Southwest and focusing on police and fire.
But I don't see that 2% is gonna make us in a more competitive position to hire police and fire at the entry level.
Well, we've got that thing we just did for the bonus, but that's if somebody finds them, I
Yeah.
guess. And the other thing is, I know fire, Dallas hires 18-year-olds, and we don't hire, they have to be 21. So,
So how much is this?
I don't
gonna be?
know.
Well, even Social Security is proposing a 2.2% increase.
I'm sorry.
So Social Security is
To what that increase is?
projected to have a 2.2%.
Like if we were to fund this proposal, that's what that impact would look like to the general.
The 329,000.
We're implementing these two things, that's the impact for
Do
the
we have any
18.
wiggle room to increase the 2% for the civil servants?
We can increase it, you know, more, but then it's just more cost, so, I mean,
They still have to be 21, right? I know, but do we have room in the budget to increase?
no, we don't, and we don't have room in the budget right now to do any of this. And we don't have room to do this either, as a matter, which is why we were saying, with the pavement management eating up all of our fund reserve and more in the ongoing years, even though it looks like we've got a lot of extra money coming in FY18, I would not put anything else in there unless we have a funding source for pavement management.
Okay, so this doesn't even go into the budget unless we do the funding for the payment management?
Some funding for the pavement management.
Okay.
So this would take the million
Well,
and drop it to 600,000?
it could go into there. The city manager said he didn't want to do it if we didn't have something in place.
Now, go back to that fund summary. So in the green column, we're above the 75-day reserve next year. So that $1 million that's above it, if we use 300,000 for compensation, then that reduces it to 700,000. But then next year, that makes it even worse. And so I don't think that's a prudent thing to do. And I, as the manager, would not implement that unless council directs us, me to, or you come up and say, we're willing to do some kind of funding for pavement management. Because right now, pavement management is an unfunded need, and I don't want to add
So
more
when did
unfunded.
when did we decide about the payment management? When is that?
We have,
I
Yeah,
haven't
we
given
have-
the direction.
We can't decide our budget until we decide that, right?
I have to file the budget by July 31st, so I have less than 2 weeks to, and that's why I'm trying to get input from y'all right now on what you're willing to do, so that I can put a budget together and submit it on July 31st.
So if we go with the fee, then we get the water bill, maintenance free, that frees up money.
That frees up money.
And then we can afford to raise the, and then how much does that free up, $1 million?
We were saying that would generate $1.2 million.
Okay. And then what are you gonna do with that?
So,
You have 300,000?
and then I had proposed some additional personnel, so looking at probably about $500,000 in recurring expenses that I would like to put into the budget with personnel and the compensation.
Well, if we don't put the personnel in, where would that leave us?
That would be the 330,000 for the compensation.
I don't think we can afford not to put personnel in.
Well, but one of them was an
Period.
entertainment director, come on.
It wasn't an entertainment, it was an events, but it was really a recreation programming specialist who would concentrate on events. But I've asked Bart to give me better information on that. But even without that one, there's still other personnel in there that I have proposed that I feel very strongly we need to add those personnel. So that's where I'm at right now, and so I'm kind of I'm looking for some input and from y'all as to what you might be willing to do. I don't want to propose a budget that you aren't satisfied with and ended up having to.
I personally would really like to see civil servants get more of a raise, because we're in a situation where we have to hold on to them, and we're past that. Now we have to attract them, and I don't see this being enough of an incentive to attract them. That's my. And the one thing the citizens want is safety. It's the one thing they want, and that's. And if we can't give them that, then everything else is not enjoyable. Streets and environment and policing, I think, are the foundationals, and then everything builds on that. And that's my point of view. And have we attracted more policemen since the last meeting? Or did that?
Chief, you want to give an update on this, on recruiting efforts for police?
Yes, I certainly will. We've made tremendous strides in our recruitment efforts. We've been very aggressive. We've done some things that we've not done recently. For example, we just purchased a radio ad. We are advertising with the Texas Municipal League. We're advertising with the Texas Police Chief Association. We've placed an ad with the Suburban, and those things are paying off. We've seen an increase in the number of individuals who have expressed interest in taking our civil service exam, which is scheduled for August the 14th. And so we're hopeful that we'll have several people sitting for that exam. We've just hired a young lady who started Monday, and we have another gentleman that will start on the 24th of July. Those two individuals will be placed in the police academy on August the 12th. And I believe that leaves us 9 or 10 openings.
I think we're at 9 today.
I think we have 9 openings. And so what we hope to do, once we have that civil service exam on the 14th, we hope to fill those vacancies off that list.
What, you had a test, didn't you have a test back in like June or something? Yeah. Did y'all, and you had?
And we just got 2,
It was-
4.
Yeah, 4.
We were able to get 4 off of that list. One was a rehire, someone that left for another police department, and she reapplied and came back to our department. That list was not very big, however. I think we had less than 20 on that list, and we were able to get 4 off of that list. So, but we don't want to have 20 applicants that we're looking at. We prefer to have a large list so that we can be more successful.
Why did the lady come back?
When she left, she expressed a desire to work in a specialized unit like narcotics, and it simply takes longer when you work for a smaller police department. So she went to a larger agency, and when she went to the larger agency, she said that she didn't necessarily like it. She wanted to come back.
And so is she in narcotics now?
No, she is not. She's in patrol.
And that was okay.
Yes, ma'am. That's where you're going to start back until opening
Oh, you
occurs.
don't get a choice if you come back, huh?
Well, when a position becomes available, then certainly you apply for it, and we choose the best person at that time.
Uh-huh.
I agree with you, and I think that we ought to go ahead and implement the street, at the smaller amount, if that's what you need to go ahead and put your budget.
We're gonna
together.
take the heat, I just say go to 10 cent amount, to $10. Not the $19, but the $10.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
what I'm talking about. Do I have a consensus or Jordan?
$10?
So that would get us $1.7 million out of the $2.5 million. When the $10.
Yes, that would, right, out of that, at least. But then we would have other, adding compensation in there is gonna change that number again. But it will be a lot more it'd be a more manageable number because we're just trying to get ahead of it.
To me, the 2% is very marginal, but that's what we can do. That's moving in a positive direction.
We'll look at if we can. I mean, certainly would like to do more than that on the police and fire side, and we'll look and see if we can do more. We've looked at some other options as well with the pay plan itself and the steps, and maybe reducing that to get people topped out sooner. We've had some discussions about that, the chiefs and Jennifer and I, and we want to explore that. So there's some other things we're looking at as well, but at least knowing that what you want to do with pavement management gives us some more options to look at and be able to include some compensation changes.
And going back to the police, one thing is that, okay, we're up in Dallas, and when you call 911 Dallas, you're figuring 5 minutes if they're there. That's early. And, 13 minutes, 25 minutes. But in Duncanville, they're there like that, and that's why people move to a small city, is so that they can have the police and the fire be so responsive to them. And we just have a great force, and now that we're officers down, I would hate to see that slip. I would hate to see us lose that standing. And I think the citizens would agree with that. That's what I hear.
All right.
I think the problem is just the perception nationwide now with all
That is
That's
not
the
a
problem.
Part of it.
I mean, you just had another one happen, with the lady from Australia, so it just is difficult to overcome.
There's a lot of factors at play, and I think there's less younger people today. There's less of an interest in police and fire as a career, public service. Chief mentioned as well too. You're seeing more applicants who have issues in their past than they did before, and the hiring process for police and fire is very stringent. So there's a lot of factors at play. But so we're in a position though where we have to be competitive because everyone else is having problems too, and they're doing what they can to get people hired.
And I would also add that we are not going to lower our standards because it's going to catch up with us. If we hire someone who shouldn't be employed, we're going to read about that in the news. So we don't want that.
Is,
Jennifer, city manager, we've talked a little bit about compensation. Do you have a feel for what other costs are, like insurance and everything? Are we going to have an increase on employee insurance?
We're going to have a meeting next week to finalize that with our consultants, but based on our claims that we've had this year, it is what it is. It's high, and it's going to have to be paid for one way or the other. So, but we don't have that finalized yet. That's going to be fine.
But it will.
That's going to impact.
It's going to we're probably going to have to do a rate increase. We did not do any kind of increase in insurance this current year, but we're probably going to have to pass along some rate increase this coming year to employees, which is another reason why, too, where I feel it's very important to do an adjustment.
Yeah, we need to have a decent adjustment in there.
okay, do I have a consensus for him to go ahead and plan his budget?
I think that was all we had. Did y'all want to talk about your budget, Council?
I just have one thing about our budget. We've done away with the board's banquet, 0.
No, ma'am. What we did was instead of what we were looking at for FY18 is buying them a shirt as their gift again. And so where we had the budget in there before for the gift to the boards, it's actually up in the line item now for shirts.
And what I was going to ask is it possible that we, instead of having the banquet, which we're not going to have, if we can buy new tables at the State of the City?
Well, we are planning to have the banquet.
But instead of having the banquet.
Oh, instead of having that?
Can we
Oh.
buy them a table, merge the two, have them come to the state of the city
Oh.
instead of having them.
Would that be a lot more expensive? Those tickets
How
would
much
stay
is
to
the
the
time,
city.
how much is the table?
I don't know.
Yeah, it's like,
That's
$1,000
a,
a table.
How much?
yeah, it's.
that's a
I thought
chamber.
that was like
trying-
300.
That's a chamber moneymaker.
Maybe we can get a discount.
No, it's the, if you're gonna have it at a hotel, the majority of that is the hotel cost.
Yeah, it's about $320 and like $8 a plate. Cost it out. The hotel.
Try for like 2025.
Yeah.
Okay, I just thought it would be nice if they could participate in that. But not for $1,000.
Okay, is that it?
Whatever
Do
y'all-
you have anything else on our council budget you want to talk about? Do what?
The meals, I know y'all talked about that last time.
Yeah. Well, we were gonna cut those out.
Or you wanted to talk about with everybody?
Cut out what?
Oh, meals.
I don't think
Are
we've
we
got
gotta
much.
finish this year? I guess that's the
Yeah.
question. When do we? Okay, yeah.
Finish out the year.
Unless you want to cut them off now, then we can cut it, just be a surplus in budget. What do you want to do?
Well, it also puts a little money though back in, because you're using local people.
I cut it down right now.
Okay, is that the consensus? You want to go ahead and drop the meals right now?
So she was taking it with me.
I didn't have a contract with him, so.
Yeah, it's just, that, let's put a little surplus in the budget. Okay, anything else? Well, we will then adjourn our budget discussion meeting at 6:17. And then, what, you want to take a picture of what?
No, the photographer had to leave at 6, so we're just gonna reschedule. And Dr. Dawson couldn't make it today because he had a baby on the way, so he said he'd be here as soon as he could, but obviously he's still.
Okay, I will go ahead and call our next meeting to order, which is the work session, briefing session, and it's now 6:18. First order of business under our work session will be discuss the agenda items.
All right, Mayor and Council, I'll go through these fairly quick. We do have a briefing on the briefing session tonight as well from the Best Southwest Partnership Healthcare, and Cynthia Mickens-Ross is here to give us that, so I'll try to get through these items quickly, give her time to speak. On the consent agenda tonight, item 4A are the meeting minutes for the June 20th council meeting, and 4B are the minutes for the budget workshop held on June 29th.
I have a suggestion. You're very professional in how you do the meeting minutes, but like I had to take a phone call a couple of times, and I think so there were some potty breaks and things. Do we need to write that in there every time? I don't think so.
No, we don't put that in here.
Okay.
I think we do, we have, like if there's a vote taken, so that there's an explanation of why the vote number didn't tally.
Right.
But if it's not during the vote, I mean, it matters.
Well, we generally don't try to take a vote
Right.
while somebody.
Oh,
Right,
right.
You know.
But you're excellent minute taker. I just want to, I mean, I thought, oh my gosh. I certainly won't go to sleep.
Alexis, is that okay?
Yeah.
Went to sleep, but.
Okay, all right.
Next item 4C is our resolution to approve a renewal of contract for janitorial services at the Duncanville Fieldhouse with Gilliam Investments or Vanguard, doing business as Vanguard Cleaning Systems. We've been in this contract since 2014. This will be the last one-year renewal of that contract, and we've been satisfied with their work. Item 4D is a resolution authorizing the procurement of a front-end loader with Associated Supply Company. This is replace a 2002 front-end loader. It was budgeted at 85,000. It came in at 134,000, and we did double check on that. But because of changes in emissions and diesel engines and stuff, is raising the cost significantly on that kind of equipment. And then there were some changes made as well to the safety features of that, which raised that cost significantly. It's the same kind of front-end loader we had before. But we do have savings from other vehicle purchases this year to make up that difference.
We're gonna auction off the existing front-end loader.
Or we get
Yeah,
rid of it, keep it.
typically, ASA makes an evaluation of that, and if there's any secondary use of the equipment, we will continue to use it, but if not, we will do an auction for the equipment.
With the potential of a new concrete crew, it might be useful to have it around, if it's still usable.
So we're not getting rid of it.
Well, I don't know
All
yet.
depends.
Depends on if the maintenance costs are absorbed with the equipment. If we're paying more to maintain it than it's worth.
And so the other ones, not the front-end loaders, but
Backhoes.
yeah, the backhoes, we have how many of those? 5
What
or
did we say?
7?
I think we got about 8 of them.
8?
Something.
Between parks and parks.
That's pretty good supply.
Yeah. That's water, water
Right.
field operations, parks and streets.
Next item is on the consent agenda is a resolution to deny the Encore Electric Company rate increase request. This was a request that they put in, and as a part of the consortium that we're in with the Encore City Steering Committee, they recommended that we deny this. What that will do then is when all the cities have denied the rate increase from Encore, then Encore will appeal to the PUC, and then it will be negotiated. But we feel that their rates are higher than what they deserve to get. So it will end up being negotiated, and then at some point we'll come back with an approval of that rate increase. Those are all of the items on the consent agenda. On the regular agenda, item 5A is the second reading of the ordinance to grant the franchise agreement to Encore Electric. If you recall, we did the first reading at the last council meeting. This is the second reading and approval of that ordinance, granting them a new franchise agreement. Item 5B is the public hearing and ordinance approval of an ordinance to approve the tax increment financing and reinvestment zone project plan and finance plan. These are the plans that were developed by the TIF board and recommended for approval, and then they come to the council for final approval. Item 5C is a resolution approving hotel occupancy tax grants to the entities that have applied. Recall the last meeting, we went through all of those, and you had a presentation from each of those entities. And so this is for the approval so that we can include these into the budget going forward. Item 5D is a resolution authorizing approval of an economic development agreement to Tenhagen Excavating. Tenhagen is an existing company in Duncanville that is expanding their facility and building a new building at their headquarters on South Alexander. And they requested an economic development assistance grant from the DCEDC to construct a new masonry screening wall. And the DCEDC approved that in the amount of $48,000. Tenhagen is going to invest approximately $650,000 into additional land and building, and they have 28 jobs that they intend to retain, and they may potentially add another 11 jobs over the next 10 years. Item 5E is a resolution repealing the sunset provision of the Neighborhood Vitality Commission and establishing that as a regular board. We are suggesting in the agreement or in the resolution establishing that the membership be increased from 5 members to 7 members. And then when you appoint members, that there will be 3 that will serve a 1-year term and 4 that will serve 2-year terms, and then after that, 2-year terms on a staggered basis. Item 5F is a resolution repealing the sunset resolution that established the social engagement partnership, and again, same thing, replacing that with a resolution to establish the social engagement partnership as a continuing board. They are currently at 7 members, and we're proposing that they go to 9 members. Same sort of thing, half of them, 4 of the members be appointed for 1-year terms, and the other 5 for 2-year terms, and then staggered terms thereafter.
I thought that we had decided to do away with some of these.
That was the next one, item 5G, which is a resolution to consider repealing the
Collapse those two.
establishment of
Right.
the Multicultural Commission. We separated those, so there's 2 action items, but that was the intent, was to, because there's overlap in the goals and missions of that Multicultural Commission, goals would be incorporated into the social engagement partnership.
But we decided to keep the neighborhood vitality and the, I thought we
Yes.
decided we weren't going
The Virtual Reality Commission and the Sports Legacy
Oh, okay,
Commission will
that's-
sunset.
to. And
But there was no action necessary on those because they're already automatically will
so
sunset
they just
in
died.
August. Right.
Excuse me.
Item 5H is appoint a member to the Duncanville Sister City Commission to fill a vacancy. When you establish that committee and then named people to the Sister City Commission, one of the members that you named was Glenn Rep. Glenn has declined to be on the board because he is a caregiver to his wife, and he regretfully had to decline because he did really want to serve on that commission. But because of that, we have a vacancy, so asking you to consider filling that. And then item 5, and I think all of you had an application from an individual interested, and I think there were some other individuals as well interested. And then item 5I is for you to name liaisons to the various boards and commissions, council liaisons to those boards and commissions.
Can you go back? So who else is interested? We have this one that's interested in that commission?
Yes.
And you said there was someone else interested?
There were a couple of other names I think the mayor had gotten from some of the other members.
Dennis has got those, the names, that was his appointment, Glenn was his appointment.
Oh, okay, Glenn was, okay.
Who?
So,
David Young.
So are we going to talk about it, or?
Yep, we can talk that.
well,
Okay.
Glenn was yours appointed, right?
Well, actually, I think there's, David he's made the trip. I don't know him personally, but he's made the trip over there a couple of times. He's very interested in serving on the board. And he's qualified to do so, has the time to do so.
I think David retired from AT&T, I believe, is where he retired from. He has made multiple trips over there. They have hosted, when they've been here, they've hosted people in their homes. They were at our dinner. He and his wife were at our dinner. And then Glenn, there was Dario. Dario knows David very well.
Yes, I am nephew from Monastero di Savigliano, and I go about twice a year there, Christmas and also another time. And just to give more information about what happened, I got a few posters that maybe we can lay down, and this is in Italian, and this is in English with the trip and pictures, testimonial, what we did. So my home is your home, your family is my family, and the same thing. These are the trips to United States with the picture of Mayor David Green, and this is the picture of my hometown. This is my hometown, and then these are the trip that we took in from here, 2004, 2002, 2000, with the program, with the testimonial of the picture I will just display it so the people who are interested can have more information about that. I also included in my application about 25 pages of different program that I prepared during this year. I was the only one who could organize it, where we knew the family on both ends, because before me there was no one. And just for your information, I am a scientist who came here for the superconducting super collider. And before that, I was working in Geneva at the European Center for Particle Physics. And on a side, besides my professional work that now is early cancer detection, so it's still, I always done some activity to try to break the barrier and to bring, to improve understanding and communication among people for a world of peace.
Then there was one other applicant,
Marion Duhon.
Marion Duhon, and she also, Brenda Dario's.
She is in the picture there too.
And she was also, she and her husband were also at the dinner we had at
Well, I've got a question.
yeah.
Why on earth did you choose to live in DeSoto?
Because the super collider was in DeSoto. I came where the super collider was. It was either Waxahachie or DeSoto. I was working at the building 3 in Beckley Mead, where the director was, the headquarters, where the detector, because I am on the detector side. I work on both. I work on accelerator and detector, but mainly detector. That now I am transferring my invention technology to early cancer detection, because it's using the detector instead of having a 48 meter long. I have just 1.5 meters, so it's like a toy for me.
And you can move.
So for the,
Well, yeah, but you see the people from Duncanville are moving to DeSoto like Cherokee.
You need to stop it
So
now.
you cannot.
Okay,
if you
we're
look at
running
this-
on a tight schedule. Dario, we're running on a tight schedule. And the other one was Mary Duhon, and she, as all three of these people, have really been involved in the program from really the get-go of the thing. So those are the three applicants. That we're pulling this kind of fast. Would you like to schedule this for a final vote the next meeting, or do you want to do it tonight?
Entirely up to you.
I'll go off of Dennis's recommendation since it was his.
This is Dennis's point. So,
Well, do we have one opening or two?
one
Okay.
at this time.
Yeah,
Do the-
I still.
do your people live in Duncanville or somewhere else?
They- I don't-
Marion does. I don't know where David lives.
David lives in DeSoto, and as well as Cherokee. There are 2 other people, Cherokee Fred and Sandy. They both live in DeSoto.
That's right. Sandy is the chairman of the committee.
So I should.
But the committee is the Duncanville Sister City Commission, but they live in DeSoto?
They've lived in Duncanville forever. They had 2 acres over here. They raised their kids here. Fred is a doctor. He practiced here. Sandy is a dietitian. She practiced here, had her office here. They not too long ago sold their home and moved over in a condo next to the country club because they don't want the 2 acres and all that. They both retired, but they are and they still go to church in Duncanville and have good contact.
What was
The
the-
one that lives in Duncanville is Mary.
Marion Duhon.
So, what do you want to do? You
I
want
have
to
a
go next
question.
week?
Why there is a limit of number? Why couldn't it be greater number?
Well, because we set it up as a council committee, and that's the way the council wanted it set up.
Well, you just throw a name out. I mean,
Do you want to wait till next meeting?
It doesn't matter to me. I'm just giving y'all a little chance breathe, or do you wanna just go ahead and get it done?
Are you going to have the opportunity to bring Mary in here? I don't know.
Or we
You know
could,
Could she come next week? too?
we could maybe bring her in next
No,
week.
I-
I recommend we do that. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Okay, we'll do that.
Then y'all will just need to table this item then tonight.
Yeah, we'll table it tonight, until the next meeting. Which will be what, August 1? Okay. Okay.
Is that anything?
Yes, sir, that was all, that was.
That's all of that, so
Unless,
we'll go into our
unless y'all
status
wanted
reports.
to discuss the liaison, I don't know if y'all, what y'all wanted to do on that, council liaison.
Don't you usually have something around, we just write
We
it
do,
down?
we have a list, and I printed a list, if you want me to just pass this around, and let them, this is, the council liaison.
What I'd rather do is, and let them think about it a little bit, and table this one until next time. And can you give that list out, can you get that printed up, give them each a copy, and let them decide, and then we'll
Yeah,
make
it's
it official
in
next
your,
time.
attached in your packet,
Oh.
list, but I can give you,
Yeah, make a list, so,
copies.
so, and then, let you think about it, and then we'll make the formal appointments at our next August 1st meeting.
Those are all the items.
Okay. So, hey, we get through quicker than I thought we would. And she's gonna make it here?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, go ahead.
The next item on your agenda then is a presentation from the Best Southwest Partnership Healthcare Committee. And with that, I'll introduce Cynthia Mickens-Ross from Charlton Methodist Hospital.
Thank you, thank you.
Only thing I can say about her, she's a super person.
Well, thank you, Mayor and Council and Mr. Higgins and staff and citizens. As they have said, I'm Cynthia Mickens-Ross, and I chair the Healthcare Committee for the Best Southwest Partnership. And over the last year and a half, we have been looking at all of the Best Southwest cities as it relates to healthcare, and looking at where the disparities are, and not only, identifying what they are, but also finding solutions to the problem. Because one of the commitments we made was that we would do the research, and I have Brad Walsh here with me from Parkland, who was our savior in terms of us getting the data per city. And once we got that information, we wanted to also come up with solutions. We didn't want to say, here's the bad news, now y'all go deal with it. But we wanted to say, here's some of the things that you might want to look at as it relates to healthcare in your cities, and here are some of the solutions that you could choose from in order to address those issues. And so Brad has done a lot of the hard work, and in the presentation tonight, you will see where your resources are. We hope that they are current, because we didn't really have a way other than coming into the city and knocking on all those doors to make sure that those resources still exist as we have them. But you will see your resources as they are identified there. You will also see what are some of the concerns that you might want to address in your cities, and you will also see where the resources are. So what I'd like to do, and I'm not going to take up the whole 20 minutes because I know you all have a full agenda, and we so appreciate you allowing us to come and bring this information to you, but we will try to make it as quick as possible and then answer any questions that you may have. So Brad is our savior, and so he's here to, I told him I don't feel comfortable presenting his hard work, so I asked him if he would come and do so.
Thanks. Okay, Brad Walsh, I'm an epidemiologist from Parkland. We do this all the time in my office. We do an annual needs assessment for Dallas County and for sub-county areas, so we're well set up when Best Southwest asked us to do these reports by city. And so the charge was to look through the health data, find out for each of the Best Southwest cities what was a major health problem or problems, and then go beyond that and try to put together at least a starting list of where you would go to find interventions for those. Cynthia's right, you guys, compared to many of the Best Southwest cities, are really well set for clinical care. Because of the proximity to Charlton Methodist, you got a lot of local doctors, and it's not true.
Methodist Charlton Medical Center.
Sorry. Okay. I'm sorry, I'm abbreviating it, my fault. And so that means you got a lot of local doctors, and that's great for a couple of reasons. Obviously, your residents have got access to care, but it also gives you a body of health professionals that you might be able to call upon who might be interested in the community problems we're going to talk about. There may be somebody in there who's always had a passion for that particular topic, and once the city says, hey, we're going to tackle this, they're going to be the one who's knocking on your door saying, help, let me help. We went through and kind of Googled all the docs and found out where the doctors are and where all the practices are, and also some resources like pharmacies and the WIC clinics, so that sometimes those can be important pieces of the puzzle that get overlooked. So before I go to it, I looked at 9 different major causes of death, 6 different categories of hospitalization, 2 different unfavorable birth outcomes, and ranked all the Best Southwest cities to try to find out what the problems were most prominent for each city. And honestly, for Duncanville, I kind of had to look down a list a little bit. The 4 leading causes of death, locally and nationally: heart disease, cancer, stroke, and chronic lung disease. Duncanville was really, the rates were really good on. In fact, the lowest of the stroke rates for all the Best Southwest cities. Second lowest cancer mortality rate, third lowest heart disease rate. So couldn't really call on those as problems, although those were the things that kill most residents in Duncanville. So we can kind of come back around to how you choose what problems to work on. But so the ones that I found that did stick out: overdose deaths and suicides. So we'll talk about those two. Overdose deaths in Duncanville and in Dallas County really took off in 2014 and 2015. The number of deaths in Duncanville due to drug overdoses was more than twice the previous 2 years added together. So it was a surprising change. The guys here who are here from EMS could probably tell you, yeah, we knew that. Duncanville, I wonder here or not. Duncanville's rate is in the red there, 1088 per 100,000 versus Dallas County's is a little bit lower. Now, the way that's defined, there are a couple of different things in that pot. It's both prescription drug accidental overdoses and illegal drugs. So the first question in my mind when I look at that number is always, which one is it? So I look down because I've got line listing data, and it's really well documented by the Dallas County coroners for this cause of death. And in this case, it was, thank you, it was illegal drugs. Heroin was the most prominent, but illegal drugs, narcotics, made up most of these deaths, particularly in 2015. Not to say that there were no prescription overdoses, but it was mostly narcotics. Most of the scenes were age 40 to 55, so it's not really a youth drug mortality problem. That's an important part of the puzzle too. To the extent that these data can help inform interventions, I'll try to get them to you. There's probably more that could be mined, and so if the city decides they want to look into this more deeply, man, I love numbers. Just let me know, and I'll be glad to pull every piece of information we can out of these numbers to help inform whatever the intervention is going forward. And we'll come back in a little bit to talk about interventions, but I wanted to get the numbers out first here. Suicide is the other one. All the decedents in the 2013 to 15 range were males, with a peak around 40 to 45. There were some youth suicides, but mostly the older age, middle age group, 40 to 55. And it's not a coincidence. There's some overlap with the drug death risk population and the suicide risk death population. Duncanville's rate is in the red again, 15.4 versus Dallas County's was 10 during that same time period. There are certainly things that can be explored about interventions for those two. Good news, I already talked about a lot of these: access to physicians, lots of good news on the chronic disease death rates and the hospitalization rates as well. So I did some work into interventions and just kind of scratched the surface, and I've certainly got some references at the end here if a group wants to talk in more detail about what to do. Drug take-back drives are getting to be more common. There's a group I know called Dallas Area Drug Prevention Partnership, DADPP, who helps sponsor drug take-back drives every quarter, I think it is. Sets it up with local police departments as a place for people to bring old prescription drugs that they don't need anymore. This already passed, but there was a prescription drug misuse town hall event last week at Texas Scottish Rite that was put on by the Public Health Service, by the DEA, by some local drug treatment folks. So those folks are still here. We could certainly call on their expertise. Mentoring and peer support for at-risk youth was one thing that was recommended from national research. You got the VA close by, so you could look into what VA offers for drug overdose. I looked for Narcanon, the narcotics equivalent of Alcoholics Anonymous, and there is a Narcanon group in the Redbird area. So that would be important, of course, to have easy to hand for schools and for EMS and for the hospitals to be able to refer patients to, but also be a place to go to for information. They may know something that's not obvious about the local drug scene that might be important to coming up with solutions. I looked up, there are several different methods that they teach in healthcare for screening. One of them is called SBIRT, Screening, Brief Intervention, and Referral for Treatment, where you catch folks where they're most likely to listen, where they're in the ER after a traffic accident where alcohol or drugs were involved, or they're an arrestee for a drug offense, and so you've got their attention, and you've got somebody who's trained to do this. Parkland's Psych-ER and Psych Inpatient do these, so that would be a resource to train those. But they could, basically, it's a sort of a script. You sit down with the patient or the arrestee and go, man, you had a close call tonight. Let's go through what I know about why you're here. And then, how many times has it happened that you've had risky events like this before? Do you feel like you've probably got an addiction problem? And then they've got the referral information right there. So they, while the person's thinking about the consequences of what just happened to them, you've got the referral for resources right there. There are a lot of other resources on the SAMHSA website, and I'll bring that up at the end just to talk about other evidence-based resources. I never go out to the cities and say, y'all should experiment. What I'm really trying to say is there are evidence-based things that have been shown to work in cities that we can get you to. Suicide, same kinds of things. Alternative schools for at-risk students, whether it's substance abuse students, teen pregnancy, LGBT, domestic violence. Mentoring and peer support programs for at-risk youth. Again, VA, drug take-back drives. One of the things that I ran into that was a kind of a light bulb moment for me, there's a really nice resource from State Health Department has a state suicide prevention plan, which is a nice document for policy planners like you guys. It's not written for scientists, it's written for decision makers at the city level. It's got a lot of nice resources. And one of the things that they mentioned that I had kind of forgotten is how suicide is kind of an infectious disease in a way. The ending of Romeo and Juliet was really sad and all that, but it also has a kernel of truth in it. One suicide often leads to another in somebody who knew the first suicide victim. If you've been around a long time, you may remember there was a high-profile incident where there were, gosh, I think over a dozen suicides in Collin County in Plano High School system, many of whom knew each other. There was kind of a jump in there. I remember there was a great CDC article I get excited about. But there was kind of two clusters that, one happened and then the other happened. You could even sort of draw a line between the two. So that happens. And so, if you've got a problem with suicides, whether it's youth or older adults, making sure you've got good solid contacts with the family and referral into treatment for them may be a real life-saving thing to do. Of course, there are great national resources for suicide hotlines and that kind of thing. Make sure those are available. There is a local Out of the Dark walk that supports suicide causes locally, and I recommend that for two reasons. Number one, of course, just raise the profile of such organizations for your city. And number two, I have targeted city leaders in the past. Sometimes the council will find out about an issue and go, man, we could just get 20 citizens together that are really excited about this issue. We could do great things, and you search and search in vain. You just can't find people at the time. So one of the ways you might overcome that is to work with these local organizations that are interested in this field, you know, form this city team this year and go, and then while you're there, go, hey, you know, who else is here from Duncanville? And start, you know, shaking hands and asking, and you may find that the people in Duncanville that are already excited about this issue are all there. You know, you don't have to ask questions and spend a lot of time finding them. They're probably were going to this for years anyway. So that's another way to sort of help you find the folks who may help with this issue. Potential allies, 2 other cities have got problems with suicide mortality, Lancaster and Palm Springs. So if you're thinking of something that's multi-city, those might be 2 natural allies. Palm Springs has similar problems with accidental drug overdose as well. Here's a contact for the website to look up the local Narconon chapters. Dallas Area Drug Prevention Partnership I mentioned, I've got contact information for them if you'd like to talk to them about drug take back or how your city might be in on those more frequently. There is the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention that has a North Texas chapter. There's a youth suicide group called the Jason Foundation. I mentioned this Suicide Prevention Council. It's got a lot of resources. There is a grant-funded campus suicide project that's just ending at Eastfield College over in Mesquite. They got a state 2-year grant to work on that, so there may be some expertise over there if you just call over there and find out who is working on that. And then finally, the resources. Here's the suicide prevention plan. Lots of helpful information there about who is already interested in this topic, what's been shown to work in cities. And then SAMHSA, the Federal Substance Abuse Mental Health Services guys, have got an evidence-based program website there where you could go and look up. These are the things the researchers have done at a city level. Here's the name of the researcher. You can pick up the phone and call them and say, hey, we're talking about doing this. Do you think it will work? Or I like your project, tell me more. Or what can you tell us about this problem that we don't already realize? So there's a lot of ways to go. Parkland is here. Charlton is here. We're happy to liaison with our hospitals and tell you how we can get more help to you if you need it.
I would like to ask a question. On the, did you pull out the data for VAs out of since we have that same age group for?
These were all residents of Dallas County regardless of where they died.
But the ones that you pulled on Duncanville that we were.
These charts?
Yeah, on the drug and on suicide we were.
Yeah, that's all Dallas County residents regardless of where they died. This isn't by hospital,
Okay.
so I mean, I get the state line listing of every death.
Because they were, because they were older, they weren't younger.
Yeah.
I'm
Right,
wondering
yeah.
if they were VA.
So what she's asking is, and we don't have that information, I don't believe, is were they veterans?
Don't
Did it
think
have
I got
any
that.
connection to when they come out of the military, they have all of those.
Since they're older,
Right,
they're in that
Yeah.
48 to 55.
And that was a question that came up in the committee. When we identified that the suicide rate was high in Duncanville, we wanted to know who are these individuals
Yeah.
that this number reflect, and that's when we determined that it was an elderly population or an older, more mature population. I'm 60, so don't think that I'm putting down anybody. But we identified that that was the case because our assumption was that it was a younger population, and that was not the truth of the matter. And so, as you can see, it's not just Duncanville. There are some sister cities that are facing the same issue. And so, again, what we bring this information to you for is, number one, to give you a heads up if you didn't know, and then to tell you where some of the resources are that you could begin to address the issue. We don't want to leave you with this information. The healthcare committee is still available to you. I would tell you that one of our thoughts was to bring your healthcare professionals together for a meeting and to share this information with them and see how they might want to work together to begin to address the issues that we're facing. And then the other thing is also to partner with the other cities and make it maybe a regional thing. Because I can tell you, just because it rose to the top for Duncanville doesn't mean it doesn't exist in all of our cities. And that's what we're looking at. In October, we're going to have a special event around mental illness because obviously there's a connection there to that as well.
Well, both of these, the drug abuse and the suicide, kind of goes back to the slide where you had about the physicians. We all know that south of the river, there are not enough psychiatrists, LPCs, LCSWs, and addiction providers. So yes, they may come to Methodist Charlton and go to the ER, and then they do the questionnaire that you mentioned. But then when they're referred out, they're given a doctor that's north of the river, and they're not gonna go. And then they go to Hickory Trails, or they go to Dallas Behavioral. They go, they do 3 days in the mental health hospital, they're discharged, they have nowhere to go. So I think that's the issue. You have these lists of doctors, and it seems like we are, I guess, saturated with enough doctors.
It's not their purpose.
But that's not the doctors that are addressing these issues. And I think that's what we need to focus on.
But I can tell you from a Best Southwest region, if we all came together, then we would have some of those resources. But it's going to take all of us working together. I don't think that we're going to solve these issues one city trying to do it. I think when you bring the region together, which is what we talk about all the time in the Best Southwest, then we with even the hospitals might be able to better address the issues that we're facing.
Well, I think well, it does, but you know, and I've heard that so many times because I've been doing this since 2005. So that's why I know I've worked for the Jason Foundation, so I'm very familiar with it. I know how it works.
You should be our champion.
Well, the resources that the Jason has, the foundation has, are free. Duncanville, they cost the city nothing. Call them; they'll send you the information so you can educate everybody in this city on how to recognize somebody with suicide ideation for free. And it's amazing to me how many people say no to free because we don't want to talk about suicide.
Right.
But the thing that I'm talking about is, you know, we're saying all this, but while we're talking and meeting, kids and adults are still dying.
Exactly.
You know, so it's kind of, you know, we need to meet, we need to do it, that's all, but let's start putting some stuff in place.
So what would you suggest is our next step?
Especially since it's 48 to 55.
Well, I guess what I'm thinking is, you know, I don't know if this is economic development, I don't know who, but we need to do something to attract more providers south of the river.
So on October the 26th, we're bringing in resources from Dallas as well as the surrounding cities to this event. And that is an opportunity for us to say, how can we begin to work together? How can we, with like MetroCare and all the other ones that are not really doing anything in our part of the city, how can we somehow create a partnership with them that they utilize a city building on Mondays and Fridays for people who need the resource.
Well, and I think,
So,
again, when we do that, we're going to have to know the demographics because MetroCare is going to serve the Medicaid population. And so, of course, those people are going to get in, but then you have people with commercial insurance. They can't get into MetroCare because the Medicaid population is there. So we kind of just saying MetroCare, that's not going to do it.
And I will say this, that we didn't come here with all the answers.
Okay.
We came here to have a discussion.
Well,
And so what we want to say is we're here as the healthcare committee for the Best Southwest region, and we want to know, what would you like to do with this information? How can we help as the city of Duncanville, how can we help the city of Duncanville address what we have identified here?
I think we start by getting more providers that can address these two issues south of the river.
So who's the team that can start to address that with providers?
Knowing that there's a major shortage of those category providers all across.
And if we need to have a meeting after this meeting to talk through that, then I'm just saying that we are here as the Best Southwest Healthcare Committee to say to you that we want to help you identify, not identify, but address those issues and identify additional resources to do so.
I think the churches and the pastors need to know about this. They can know.
Dallas County is really lucky to have the Salvation Army alcohol rehab facility up there on Harry Heights. But as far as I know, I don't think they take drugs, only alcohol.
Only alcohol.
Yeah, I mean, there's a crying need for at least that much capacity on the drug side too.
Right.
So maybe a philanthropic solution that's looking at this long term.
Isn't that different, our age group? Or is that,
Is it, what,
Isn't that real
Well,
different?
she's saying the age group of 55 and older being the cases that we identified was suicide. and
Because, I
also-
mean, I think,
It's an older population, yeah.
Could be.
And it's
Yeah, just a
unusual.
lot
So
just a
her
lot.
question
Well,
is that unique?
It has to be addressed, it has to be addressed universal, because 3-4 years ago, we had a student at Reed commit suicide. I think it was on campus, so it has to be across the board.
Yeah, and DeSoto just had, I think it was DeSoto or City Hall just had a young kid killed, yeah. So it is. So,
Well, what I want to say is, people ask, well, what does Best Southwest do? We're one of the 4 resident cities. This is just one small phase of what Best Southwest does. We've had an invitation to please come join at this meeting coming up. We need to take this to heart and see what we can do as a city. And Cynthia, and we, all of you who've been on this
Yes.
committee, we appreciate it. I know the work that you've done, and it's tremendous work to come up with these statistics and surveys, and how many doctors we've got in all of that. So I want to say thank you. I told you she was tremendous. She one of the backbones of Charleston.
well, I'm good at identifying great people who do great things that make me look good, so, but
We're a good
we
team.
really worked really hard to, not only, like I said, to identify what the issues were, but really what are some of the solutions? And so this is just the start of a discussion, but we're here, and we hope that you will join us on October the 26th and it's the title of the program is The Face of Mental Illness. And so we have on the program Mark Cuban's brother, Brian Cuban, who has a serious mental health issue that he faces every day as a lawyer, practicing lawyer, that you would never think that this person has mental illness, but they do. And so we're just trying to really bring it home and break down the stigmas that, people think that certain people are not facing these issues, but they are. All of us are, whether we want to acknowledge that or not. We are all facing it, and it affects all of our communities.
I don't think you'd actually said that the event in October is at Methodist Charlton.
Yes, it is. It's
Okay.
at Methodist Charlton Medical Center,
Well-
and it starts at 11. It's from 11 to 2, and we're going to have resource tables. We're going to have 2 panels. Panel is going to be 3 individuals that are facing and dealing with mental illness every day, and then the other panel is going to be of professionals that are providing those services and resources to those families and individuals with mental illness.
And there's something happening. Best Southwest has 2 or 3 different points that we're really dwelling on this year. One is transportation.
Right.
Another one is legislation, and I want to invite you, thanks to Charlton, every Friday in the month of August, there is a free great breakfast at Charlton, and we'll have somebody from the legislature there talking with us.
It's not going to be a healthy breakfast, but it'll be a good breakfast.
The
But it's the
bacon, the eggs, the sausage, biscuits and cream gravy, yes.
But it is, it's every Friday. It's free every Friday. It starts at 7:15. And we bring in, I think we have Clay Jenkins, we have
first
Senator
one you
West.
have Royce West.
Royce
second one
West, yes.
is the state rep,
Yeah.
Don Gettings. Third one is Holly Reed. Fourth one is,
I looked at it.
She reads every once in a while.
Wow.
Yeah.
So again, that's free, and it is sponsored by the
Fourth
Best
one's Clay
Southwest
Jenkins.
Sponsor.
Cynthia, if you would
Yes.
send me the information on that event in October, then I can make sure the council gets in an appropriate staff as well.
Yeah, we'd like to set aside a table for the city of Duncanville, so you can bring your staff and the council.
Thank you
all
so much for this
Thank you.
presentation tonight.
Thank you so much.
Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
You need to help us get looked into this. Oh. Okay, that is our last agenda item. So at this time, I'll go ahead and adjourn the meeting and ask you to quickly get into the council meeting because it's 7:04.
And just real quick, Mayor and Council, this
7:13, and I will call our city council meeting to order. First thing that we'll have tonight will be our invocation by Pastor Keith Brister from First Baptist Church, Duncanville, who has just completed a long, long bicycle ride. Keith, how far did you ride?
3,021 miles, Mayor, and just got back from a cross-country thing 3 weeks ago. Home sweet home. I'm happy to pray for y'all tonight.
And you started in
San Diego, California to St. Augustine, Florida.
Wow. You're a good man.
Pray for me.
Following the invocation, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, so will you please stand?
Mayor and Council, it is a privilege to pray for the leaders of your community, so I'm honored to do this. Our Father, we stand in your honor. We bow in your presence to offer up this prayer of gratitude for this place that you have planted us and allowed us to live and grow our families and invest our lives. We thank you for this community. We pray tonight for a blessing on it and its people. God, we pray tonight for this city and its duly elected leadership who have been willing to say yes, and that you have placed, the Bible says, you have placed in this place of authority. We ask and stand in the gap for them for wisdom and for a purity of mind and heart and great deliberation, good listening, and good speaking and communicating skills. We pray that you would grant that to them and to the community who listens and tries to participate. For these, our leaders, bless them and their families and guide them, and thank you for their gift of their time and energy and mental. Bless them, Lord, and bless this city. And we pray this in a very generous and wonderful and special name, in the name of Jesus. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Well, my mayor's report tonight is short and sweet. We had another good Duncanville event that happened last Saturday, and I want to thank all of you who participated in it and all who came. This street fair that we're having once a month, Duncan Switch, is just a wonderful thing, and we would encourage all of you to come out on the third Saturday of each month on Main Street for this event. We're busy here. We're doing a lot. We've got our budget that we're working on diligently. We've got our board appointments. Summer's a busy time for the council, and I want to say that I'm very grateful for the time and sacrifice that they're making to be here at all these meetings. So that would be my mayor's report. Do we have any council member reports? Councilwoman Jamison.
Last Monday night, I went to a meeting at the International Museum. It was some young ladies from Rwanda and from Afghanistan, and they were professional women. It was very enlightening. They came here to learn from us in the United States, and there were attorneys, doctors, they were in agriculture, they had clothes manufacturing, there was a cosmetic company, one imported and exported beer and wine from Germany and France, and I got tickled because I sat at a table with some, and I asked this young lady if she was married and had children, and she looked at me and smiled and explained to me that in Afghanistan, women here are familiar with contouring your eyebrows and making them lovely. You don't do that there until you're engaged to be married. And it's kind of like you're taken and that's it. And she lifted her headdress and said, I did mine anyway. And I'm not engaged and I'm not married and I don't have children. And she was just real pleased with herself that she was a professional young lady. And she serves on the Afghanistan Chamber of Commerce. It's a national chamber with the First Lady of Afghanistan. So I would just encourage you, if you get the opportunity, to go and visit or take part in any of the programs that are going on there, because they're very interesting and enlightening. And you can share with something else that happened. We had a restaurant that had catered the event, and they really enjoyed the food, and they said this must be particular for this, and it was fried chicken, mashed potatoes, and gravy. And I said, yes, that's very Southern in the United States. And so one of them whispered to me later and said, you know, it was pretty salty. And I said, yes, that's a marketing ploy, because if you eat that, then you buy more tea, or because she was the import-exporter, I said beer and wine. And she looked at me and she said, you know, that's a great idea. So anyway, I think you would enjoy going there and participating in some of the programs they have, because they do have people from all over the world. And it enriches you as well as them.
Okay. That's the only council member report we have. City manager's report.
Mayor and council, I do not have any report this evening.
Item number 3 is the citizen input. No, prior to that, I do have a proclamation for the Parks and Rec month. I prepared a proclamation which reads as follows: whereas Parks and Recreation programs are an integral part of the community throughout this country, including Duncanville, Texas, and whereas our parks and recreations are of vital importance to establishing and maintaining the quality of life in our community, ensuring the health of all citizens, and contributing to the economic and environmental well-being of our community and region. And whereas the Parks and Recreation program build healthy, active communities that aid in the prevention of chronic disease, provide therapeutic recreation services for those who are mentally or physically disabled, and also improve the mental and emotional health of all citizens. And whereas the Park and Recreation program increase a community's economic prosperity through increased property values, expansion of local tax base, increased tourism, the attraction and retention of businesses, and crime reduction. And whereas Parks and Recreation areas are fundamental to the environmental well-being of our community, and whereas park and natural recreation areas improve water quality, protect groundwater, prevent flooding, improve the quality of air we breathe, provide vegetation buffers to development, and produce habitat for wildlife. And whereas our parks and natural recreation areas ensure the ecological beauty of our community and provide a place for children and adults to connect with nature and recreate outdoors. And whereas the U.S. House of Representatives has designated July as Parks and Recreation Month. And whereas Duncanville, Texas recognizes the benefits derived from parks and recreation resources. Now therefore, I, David L. Green, Mayor of the City of Duncanville, Texas, do hereby proclaim July the 20th as Park and Recreation Month in Duncanville, and urge all citizens to acknowledge the importance of parks and recreations in our community, our state, and nation.
Thank you, Mayor. On behalf of all of the staff, I want to thank the council, our park board, and all of our citizens for all of your support of our Parks and Recreation program and department. I wish more of our cohorts could be up here with us, but this time of year, this time of day, they're all exhausted typically, so they're all home in bed perhaps. But I want to thank you for all that you do for us, giving us the resources we need to provide the parks for our citizens, and we appreciate all that you do for us.
You know, we had some of our Italian sister city folks come over in March. They could not believe how clean and beautiful our city was, how the parks were just spotless with the flowers blooming, and they just raved and raved and raved about it. Parks and Rec make a big difference in our community. When on the recreation side, we've got the biggest tournament being held in the entire North Texas area. Will be held this weekend, the Great American Shootout. Every hotel in this entire area from Arlington all the way to Mesquite and down south, plus every gymnasium, will be filled with people who have come to Duncanville to participate in this big tournament that's held once, well, it's actually held twice a year. This is the biggest part of it, will be held this coming Saturday. We'll have about 85 major college coaches here scouting people who they would like to see join their university. It's a big deal. There's just a tremendous amount of people will be here. Our hotels will be packed, and all of the restaurants will be packed. The folks from the restaurant and hotel business tell us that it's a major impact for them when we hold these tournaments. So couple that with what we do in our parks, just look around and see the people in the morning jogging around and enjoying what we have to offer here in Duncanville. And you'll know that we truly have a great city when it comes to park and recreation. We're down to our citizens' input section of our agenda tonight. That would be item number 3. And I have one card, and I would like to remind those people who speak before the council is the rules are that we cannot comment on what you say because it's not a listed agenda item, and that would be in violation of the state law. And each citizen can come and speak for 2 minutes. I have one card tonight, and that's Christina Liu. So at this time, I would ask her to come up and give her name and address for the city secretary.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Christina Liu. This is third or fourth time I show up. I'm glad the mayor said we want Duncanville to be beautiful. I think not only physically or materially, but also morally, from inside out. And it's all stated on these 2 pages, 12 items that you guys can go over because I cannot finish in 2 minutes. It's all the details.
Mrs. Liu, we will have to limit it to 2 minutes, so go ahead.
Yeah, you want to be the change you wish to see. That's my topic. From inside out, renew the spirit of work ethic so as to make Duncanville morally beautiful. That's what it counts. It can redirect all these, the top city in USA, okay? Let Donald Trump look up to us. That's my wish. And it's all the detail. I did have a divine intervention lead me to know all this. I did not make up a story. So please read it. Take into consideration. It's very important. Okay? Everything is nothing but the truth and the fact. It's a divine intervention. When you have that mental state, heaven, the nature and you become one. Even things you didn't want to know, it voluntarily exposed in front of you. That's my life experience. I do not make up story. So please read it. I did this impromptu, okay? We need to live a meaningful life, not the deceptive one. Thank you.
Thank you. We've got it listed. That's all right. We'll put it in the record. Item number 4 are the consent items, and at this time, they're items number A through E. I will ask the city secretary if she will please read the captions on those.
Item 4A, consider the minutes for the June 20, 2017 regular city council meeting. Item 4B, consider the minutes for the June 29, 2017 budget workshop meeting. Item 4C, consider a resolution authorizing the one-year renewal for contract 1421 janitorial services at Duncanville Fieldhouse with Gilliam Investments, Inc., DBA Vanguard Cleaning Systems of Dallas-Fort Worth for the unit amounts bid with an estimated expenditure of $73,158.40. Item 4D, consider a resolution authorizing the procurement of a front-end loader with Associated Supply Company, Inc. through the Houston-Galveston Area Council, HGAC Cooperative Contract CM0617, in the expenditure amount of $134,072. Item 4E, consider a resolution of the City of Duncanville, Texas, finding that Encore Electric Delivery Company, LLC's Encore or Company application to change rates within the city should be denied, finding that the city's reasonable rate cases expenses shall be reimbursed by the company, finding that the meeting at which this resolution is passed is open to the public as required by law, requiring notice of this resolution to the company and legal counsel.
I would ask that the city manager give us a brief explanation of what this is.
Item 4E. Item 4E, Mayor and Council, is an application by Encore Electric Delivery Company. They filed an application to change their rates with cities and requesting an additional 7.5% over their present revenues. That would result in an increase of 11.8% in residential rates and a 0.5% increase in street lighting rates. The City of Duncanville is a member of the Encore Cities Steering Committee with 158 cities across the state of Texas. Based on our legal counsel who typically reviews these rates, they do not feel that those rates are justified, so they are asking each of the member cities to deny that. When the cities deny the resolution or the request by Encore, then Encore will have the opportunity to file those rates with the PUC, at which time then the Encore steering committees will have the opportunity to review those rates in front of the PUC with Encore and come to a negotiated rate agreement. And those rates then would come before the council at a future date. So we are asking you to deny their rate request and give us the opportunity then to negotiate those with Encore in the future with our steering committee, council, and experts.
Thank you. Council, you've heard the captions read. The chair will entertain a motion regarding these consent items.
Move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Will you please vote? Thank you very much. Item number 5 is items for individual considerations, and item number 8 is to consider approval on the second reading of an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, granting to Encore Electric Delivery Company, LLC, its successors and assigns the non-exclusive right to use and occupy rights of ways with the city of Duncanville for the construction and operation of an electrical transmission and distribution system, prescribing conditions governing the use of the public right-of-way, providing for compensation therefor, providing for an effective date and a term of said franchise, providing for written acceptance of the franchise, funding that the meeting at which the ordinance is passed is open to the public, and providing for severability.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is a new agreement, and this is a 20-year agreement that will be effective October 2017 through September 2037. There's really not any changes in this franchise agreement versus the previous franchise agreement, except for the discretionary charges, and those have been more detailed out and specified in this franchise agreement, so that it's easier to calculate those discretionary charges. Other than that, there's no real change. We're still at the same 4% franchise agreement rate. So this is the second reading, and staff recommends approval of this franchise agreement.
Okay, this was the second reading, so we will move to item number B.
This requires a vote.
We have to vote on this?
Yeah.
Oh,
This is
the
second reading and
Okay.
approval, I'm sorry.
I move to approve.
Okay, there's a motion. Is there a second? There's a motion and a second to approve. So please vote. Thank you. Item number B is to conduct a public hearing and consider an ordinance of the city of Duncanville, Texas, approving the final project plan and financing plan for the tax increment financing reinvestment zone number 1.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. This is really the final step in the creation of the TIF. So what I'd like to do is go back a little bit and give the council, just walk through the background again and the history of how we've gotten where we are today. In August of 2015, the city contracted with Insight Research Corporation to conduct an economic impact analysis of the I-20 service road project extension. The 20 years analysis concluded that if the service road extensions were built and the needed improvements were made to support the redevelopment, the economic impact would be approximately 18.9 million more generated in direct and indirect taxes to the city of Duncanville. 423 direct full-time employee jobs would be created or retained, and 278 indirect full-time or FTEs jobs would be created or retained for the area. Moving on, in terms of the recommendations that came out of the analysis with the redevelopment, first of all, it would be redevelopment of the properties, branding, which includes the overpasses, entrances, signage, landscaping, light poles. Again, we're talking about creating that sense of place more in the Camp Wisdom area, and this is something that we've talked about a lot. Streetscaping, sidewalks, intersection improvements, making pedestrians feel safer, that they can walk across the street so they can walk and shop in the area and stay longer. Decorative lighting, again, just making people feel safe and more welcome. And hardscaping. Again, as I just spoke about, increased walkability, connectivity to Main. That's one thing that's really important as we go through and continue to even look at the comp plan, is that we really want to continue that connectivity of getting people off I-20 down through into Main Street. Connectivity to the neighborhoods. That's one thing, if you remember, that we had talked about before, how there are a number of neighborhoods in the Camp Wisdom area that in order to shop at some of the stores there, that they actually have to walk a great distance around, and really they don't have that connectivity to really make it as safe and walkable, especially those with young children. and again, improving safety. And you can see there are some of the things that we talked about in terms of the bridge improvements. We talked about with safety, possibly looking at maybe a satellite police station at some point over in that area to help with that, and along with the sidewalk improvements or the intersection improvements in terms of really widening those and making people feel safe and to calm traffic in that area. Further on, in terms of redevelopment and branding, the benefits there would increase the property values, increase sales tax collections because people would be there spending money more, increase in hotel motel tax collections. Again, we're creating that sense of place where people want to be, and ultimately increase in jobs. The funding mechanism identified for the public improvements, because we all know that those do have dollar signs attached to them, was creating a tax increment financing reinvestment zone, or a TIF. And that's really what the council has taken the measures over the past several months in terms of having the town halls and getting public input on those. So on December 20th, 2016, as you all remember, you approved the creation of a TIF, and it was basically the TIF number 1. And you created a board of directors and a preliminary project plan and financing plan. And remember, back then they were just preliminary. We had went through, and then once the board was assigned or appointed, then at that time the board would review those needs and bring back a final draft for y'all to approve. So on February 7th, moving forward, y'all appointed a 5-member TIF board. Since the TIF board was formed, they've been very busy. They've met 3 different times. They've reviewed the preliminary plans that we just spoke about. They've toured the zone. If you remember all, you were invited to come out, and we had some other board members from other committees come and tour with us and really assess the area along with staff in terms of the needs of evaluating the needs of the area. And this is something that you all know about. This is here on Camp Wisdom. They're Camp Wisdom and I-20 just before the bridge. And then so after going through all that work on June 27th, the TIF board did approve a final project plan and financing plan. The project plan includes the following. You can see up there a total amount of basically $7,135,000. It includes a property redevelopment fund, the intersection improvements that we talked about, landscaping, street lighting, benches, bike racks, trash cans. Again, we're still trying to create that sense of place. We have to make it welcoming for people to want to come. The medium improvements and the sidewalks, just as you saw the picture, and then also the monument entrance signs to really brand the area. That's something that we talked a lot about, is a lot of people don't realize that when they're passing through Duncanville that they're just not on another stretch on I-20. So we really want to set us apart from the other communities in the area. Included in there are some more bridge improvements and the walking trails. And then last but not least is the administrative cost, and that's for the life of the TIF. As you know, this is something that we talked about. Every year we do have to file state reports, and we work with our TIF consultant to make that happen. So there are costs associated with the creation of the TIF. As you know, we did hire Larry Klein with Klein Consulting, and he's the one that put together our financing plan so we could evaluate it. So with the board chose, as you know, when I came to council back in December, there were 2 options basically. There was a conservative approach for financing and there was an aggressive approach. And after evaluating the needs and evaluating the potential of the area with the board, along with our consultant, the board chose to go with the aggressive approach for the project income. Basically, it would have 25% lot coverage, so the lots would have 25% of the lots would be built on, would have buildings on them, at $150 price per square foot. 100% city contribution, as council knows, you already approved the 100% contribution rate, and then also the TIF fund would generate approximately $8.831 million. So again, I have Mr. Klein here this evening. I would be happy to answer any questions that you all might have.
Jessica, you showed the total cost was $7,135,000.
That is correct, yes, sir.
Would you explain briefly what a TIF is, and that this is not money that the city's going to spend out of our general fund budget?
That is correct. That is correct. When the TIF was established, we looked at basically it sets a base rate, which is what the ad valorem taxes or the taxes that you pay on your house, what that rate is set at. And that was in 2017 in December. From this point forward, every year there's always an incremental increase on your ad valorem taxes, and you'll see that on your bills if you look at them. From this point forward, that incremental increase for with M&O will be included, maintenance and operation, that portion of it will be set aside and put into a TIF fund. Those funds cannot be used for any other purpose than the improvements of the TIF area. In addition, the board will make recommendations whether for those expenditures, whether they're redevelopments, whether they're infrastructure improvements, what have you, but ultimately that decision comes back to council and the council votes on it. But again, I want to stress that those funds are not funds that can be used for any other purpose in the TIF district. And then also, that is not an increase on people's property taxes at all. Those are incremental increases that you will see regardless. Just, it's a matter of moving the money from the general fund into the TIF fund. So those can be basically where those dollars are generated, they can go back and be spent to improve that area.
If I could just clarify one thing too. When we're talking about those incremental values, that is only for the properties within the zone.
I'm sorry, yes,
So not
that's correct.
anyone outside of that zone, it doesn't affect. It's only the properties within that zone. That was why it was so important to establish the boundaries of that tax increment financing zone. Right. There's
And again,
only-
this is the boundaries that were created.
Is it ad valorem taxes or sales taxes?
No, ad
No, ma'am,
valorem.
it's ad valorem property taxes. So when the TIF zone was created, as Jessica said, that baseline property valuation in that zone was established, and that becomes the baseline. Those taxes still come back to the city into the general fund. Any incremental increases in valuation, those tax dollars then will go back into funding and financing the zone, and then at the end of the life of that zone, all of that valuation will come back to the city.
So none of the sales tax?
The sales tax will come to the city in its normal form like it does right now. So as properties develop within the zone and we see higher use type properties in the retail and commercial sales, hopefully they're going to generate more sales tax, and then that will increase our sales tax revenue. But those will come back to the general fund, not into the TIF zone. The TIF financing is only based on the ad valorem increase.
And it does have a 20-year lifespan, as what you all approved previously.
So this is going to be paid for by creating the TIF, and the increase in the value and the activity that goes on will pay for all of this. Ad valorem tax will go in, but then the city will get the immediate effect of increased sales tax that may be generated with new businesses.
That is correct, yes, sir.
Mayor, I move to approve this TIF proposal.
Well, wait, this is a
Wait a
public
minute,
hearing.
this is a public hearing. We got
Oh,
to do the
never
public
mind.
hearing first. Okay, this is a public hearing, so at this time, we'll give the public a time to come up and either express their desire to see this passed or their displeasure with it and ask for it to be turned down. So at this time, we invite the public to come up. Please, if you do come up, give your name and address for the records. Somebody's laser is on back there shining on the floor.
I apologize.
Trying to figure out what that was. Okay.
Hello, I'm Wesley Jameson at 1214 Lady Lane here in Duncanville. I've spoken in front of the council before with several questions regarding the need for a TIF in a city the size of Duncanville with 13 square miles. I feel like, you know, these are awfully optimistic numbers, $8.8 million over 11 years in increased property tax value. If that's the case, I would like to see those dollars put into the general fund instead of into a fund earmarked for these particular locations. This is the first time I've ever heard of this TIF being referred to as the I-20 Service Road TIF. That's a bit of an unusual name since it's really on Camp Wisdom, and the bulk of the properties there, I guess, is for redevelopment. Not real sure what the money is going to be used for. If there is that type of an increase in property values, thus generating those kind of ad valorem taxes, what in the world are you going to do with that in that little small area along Camp Wisdom and up there to help out DeFord's? Because I guess his is the only property there north of I-20. If those properties needed redevelopment, why is it taking a TIF in order to do that? Do they need money? Does Wolverton need money? Does the butane gas guy, the propane gas guy down there need money? What's the purpose of this TIF in order to keep the money within a certain zone? I really don't understand that. I don't understand that we need that type of earmarked funds outside of general funds to be only used within that geographic area. You're talking about over an 11-year period, $106 million worth of increased property values. We can't even get the McDonald's built. How long have we heard about that up there? Perhaps that was part of the, let's wait till we get the TIF so we can get an increase in property values after the baseline was drawn. And wasn't there a hotel up there too? Probably need to mow the grass up there. The weeds are growing awfully tall. Thank you.
Anyone else either like to speak for or against? Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
Move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Okay, there's motion and second to close the public hearing. Will you please vote? You're not voting on this. Okay. Okay, item number C.
Mayor, Mayor, I would like to move
Yeah,
to approve the TIF proposal.
Okay, there is a motion. Is there a second to that?
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the TIF as presented. Ms. Jameson. Ms. Jameson.
Yes, I won't be voting for this because I take issue also with calling it the I-20. Camp Wisdom needs to be developed, and the assumption was great, having the lady come in, and what she does is takes figures and then extrapolates, and so it's all pie in the sky, and we can have all this development. These are my neighborhoods. This is my district. And we have Redbird and Fair Meadows. And I know this isn't going to Redbird right now, but it is Fair Meadows. And I also take issue, with that money. We were talking about the budget tonight and how, we are behind on street repair and we need more money there. The problem is, though, that this money will be captured from this area, and it stays there and goes back in there. So if there are projects anywhere else in the city, they don't get any of this money. It's from this area, it stays in this area for 20 years. And I totally agree, in a city this size, you can't absorb that kind of a project. We should be taking our funds and using them where they need to be used in the city, within the city. And, to call it the I-20, pulling in from I-20 is just wrong. There's neighborhoods there, and I do think Camp Wisdom needs to be redeveloped. I just take issue with calling it the I-20.
It's my understanding that this is a TIF the money that's created in a TIF can only be used in the TIF. It cannot be distributed to the rest of the city.
Mayor and council, if I could respond and answer that. And as we've said a number of times as we've gone through this process and explained the tax increment reinvestment zone and the purpose of it, to say that these tax dollars are lost into the city is really kind of a misnomer, because without any development, there is no increased tax dollars. The whole idea of a tax increment financing zone is to be able to create a funding mechanism to create development there by developing the infrastructure, by providing more aesthetic improvements, by providing incentives to developers in that zone. We will enhance development and generate, hopefully, the tax dollars that we're talking about. If we don't generate the increase, then we're not going to have the funds to do it. So we're not going out on a limb and creating debt or anything like that. This will be a pay-as-you-go. But to not do anything at all means that that area could basically sit the way it is for the next 10, 15 years, and we won't ever see that increase in tax dollars. What we have seen from the public input on the comprehensive plan is that area is identified as an opportunity area for development and redevelopment. And in the last town hall meeting, when we asked citizens to give us their input on what were the highest priority areas to develop, Main Street, Camp Wisdom, and US 67 were the top 3 areas that citizens want us to develop. This is a funding mechanism to see that development occur. If we don't create it, then it could, as I said, there is every chance that it will sit the way it is because of the development. So we have to create some incentives to spur the kind of development that we want. That is the purpose of it. And so again, I think to say that those tax dollars are lost is really a misnomer, because there aren't any tax dollars, and there probably would not be if it was not for a tax increment reinvestment zone.
Councilwoman Jameson.
That's not what I said, and I would appreciate if the city manager would not try to put words in my mouth in the future. I didn't say they were lost. They are captured in that area, and they don't leave that area. That is what I said. And that's right. At the last comprehensive plan, it was 67, Camp Wisdom, and where was the other? Main Street? Right. And so Camp Wisdom, I do think, needs to be redeveloped. But to include the I-20 service roads and the I-20 in that, and to go over into that other area, is wrong. Those are our homes over there in the Fair Meadows area. And that's not, good heavens, as was pointed out, you have some businesses there that have received money from the city, and they have not chosen to redevelop. Those are some of our highest businesses in town. So the Camp Wisdom Road, yes, it does need it. And we're supposedly going to get a McDonald's and a hotel. And, you know, I wouldn't have a problem with capturing that funding there on Camp Wisdom and putting it back into that area where it came from. It's this push from some people to include I-20 and an area right now that is behind. The council voted in 2008 to do the south side of I-20 eastbound from Main Street to Cockrell Hill. And we let it sit there. And now the feds want us to, if they're going to look at a project, now you have to look at both sides. You don't have to agree to do both sides, but you have to look at them. And we just did that with our new, what do you call it, the environmental study. And so you don't have to do the north side that is where the Fair Meadows neighborhoods are. And so some of this is convoluted, and as was pointed out to me, you can make anything look like what you want it to. and survey says. And once again, the lady who came to tell us, a retired city manager who started this company that we hired, the city manager hired, to come and tell us how much money we're gonna, could, should, might, maybe make off of I-20 is extrapolating figures. And so I will stand for my neighborhoods, and the Camp Wisdom area I don't have an issue with. I do on the north side of I-20 in Fair Meadows.
Mayor, I would just like to clarify real quickly for council is that this is the map that has been approved, and it does not include the neighborhoods on the north side. I just want to clarify that. It is, we have our industrial area up here, and then it is Camp Wisdom is the focus. That is correct, and this is the map. This is the TIF that was approved by City Council.
Right, you said the TIF, but when you said the I-20.
Well, that was the initial project, was to look, that's just what it was called, was the I-20 service roads initially, in terms of what was evaluated, how much of an impact that those south ones could make to the community and to the Camp Wisdom area. Yes, ma'am. But this is the Camp Wisdom. It covers Camp Wisdom, as you can see. This is the one that the council
Oh, I
approved.
understand, and I know that we had 3 different maps, and we cut it down to this
Yes, ma'am.
one.
This
Then
is
we
the one that you
Well, actually, we
approved.
cut it down to a smaller one, and then we came back and increased it, and I understand that. I just want to be clear that, because I know the I-20 service roads are part of this thought process on the north side, and those do include those neighborhoods, and shutting off their access, egress, regress into those neighborhoods. So it does.
Councilwoman.
Yes, Mayor. Anyone who's driven down Camp Wisdom knows that it's been long neglected. And so I applaud this initiation to address that issue. Duncanville is, our assets are I-20 and 67. We have national traffic going down I-20 every day. We need to get that traffic off of 20 into Duncanville so they can spend their dollars in Duncanville. And so to that extent, I hope that this is successful in doing that, because when this is successful, it will provide property tax relief for the citizens in Duncanville. We're 11 square miles. We can't build factories. There's not too many industries that can come in here. But this is a way that we can get the traffic off into Duncanville, spending their money, raising the tax values there in that area, and also some sales tax. So that's why I'm strongly for this project, and I hope it's not 20 years. I hope it's 5, 10, 5?
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks.
Councilman LeBlanc.
Just for some clarity, Ms. James, the vertical where it goes north, I guess to the east, is that Main Street?
To the east is, yes.
And to the west is
Duncanville Road. Yes, sir.
And so then it crosses I-20, and so it comes to the bottom, and that's just a little bit part of something that's south of Camp Wisdom. Looks like maybe where the Quick Trip or whatever.
Right there.
Over, right there?
Right there, that is the Quick Trip on the corner.
Okay, then here, that's that area where.
This is Fair Meadows Shopping Center.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes,
And then if we come on down, we're circling around, okay,
Uh-huh.
in this area here, what is?
That is where this school owns some vacant property there. Also, the tortilla
car
factory is
dealership,
there.
That's empty?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
sir. That is correct.
All right, that's.
Okay. We have a motion and a second on the floor, and I see no further lights. Will you please vote? Okay, thank you very much. Item number C is to consider a resolution approving an offer of hotel occupancy tax grants for fiscal year 17-18 budget to entities that directly enhance and promote tourism and the convention and hotel industry conditional. Okay.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor and Council. You're going to get to see a lot of me in the next few minutes. Moving forward, if you remember right, at the last council meeting, we went over what was stipulated by state law in terms of qualified expenditures for hotel motel taxes. In addition, we brought up the applicants who were making requests for funding for different events to the diocese, and each one was able to provide their information on their event or their funding request. So I'm just going to skip through this very quickly. As you know, there's a two-part test, and in order for these expenditures to be used, they have to meet both parts of the test. The first one is every expenditure must directly enhance and promote tourism and the convention and hotel industry. Again, we went over before in terms of how that criteria was met and what were some recommendations by the Texas Hotel Lodging Association, which somewhat governs or oversees these funds. The second criteria was every expenditure of the hotel occupancy tax must clearly fit into one of the 9 categories provided. And as you can see down here, we've listed those again. So the 9 categories including funding the establishment, improvement, or maintenance of a convention or visitor center, paying the administrative costs for facilitating a convention registration, paying for advertising, solicitations, and promotions that attract tourists and convention delegates to the city or its vicinity, expenditures that promote the arts. And it's very important on this criteria that the first one, they have to meet the first part test in terms of putting heads in beds. And then the second part, obviously, is the arts portion. The 5th category is funding historical restoration or preservation programs. Funding certain expenses is the 6th one, including promotional expenses directly related to sporting events within counties of a population fewer than 1 million. 7, funding the enhancement or upgrading of existing sporting facilities or sports fields for certain municipalities. 8 is funding transportation systems for tourists. And 9 is signage directing tourists to sites and attractions that are visited frequently. So basically, that would be your wayfinding signs. If you were to think about number 9, that's really wayfinding signs. So again, these are the applicants that have put forth requests for this year. And what I've done is I put together a chart here that you can see. For instance, Great American Shootout, the council awarded them for FY 16-17 $25,000. They are requesting an increase to $35,000, and staff does recommend the increase. This does, if we look at it meeting the criteria for state funding, it does meet that. It is a multi-day event. And that's how, in terms of the funds, this is something that will happen, whatever the council approves. We will be doing agreements with each applicant, as we did last year, and they are required to do reports after their event and provide validation in terms of how those funds were used. So they provide supporting documents after their events. In terms of for the Great American Shootout, those funds will be used primarily for renting of facilities within Duncanville. As the mayor spoke about earlier, that there are a number of facilities besides just the field house. That is part of that, but besides that, there's a number of facilities, gyms and that type of thing in Duncanville that they will utilize to host this event. Moving on, Smoking Blues and Barbecue Festival. They actually, this is the first year. Last year they held their event, but they did not request funding. If you were to look at their application, there was a slight misprint there. They were actually requesting $42,000. And so that request was for advertising of their event, bands, and then also signage. But again, remember when I spoke about the criteria for number 9, that was wayfinding signage. So really, that part of their request really doesn't qualify. So it is a multi-day event, so it does meet the overall state requirements. And so if you looked at the numbers, basically what staff recommends is $37,000. And again, that's their total amount, which was $42,000 minus the $5,000 that didn't really qualify. Moving on, in terms of the Sandra Meadows Classic, again, last year they requested $38,000, or they were awarded $38,000. This year they're requesting $40,000, and staff does recommend $40,000. It is a multi-day event. These funds are primarily used for the cost associated with the team staying in the hotels here in Duncanville only. Moving on, the Duncanville Community Theater, and both the theater and the museum, they qualify underneath the arts category, but remember, they still have to show that they are putting heads in beds, and that is still part of the state criteria. Last year, the theater, the council awarded them $28,000. This year, they've requested $30,000, and the recommendation would be $30,000. Again, they do provide monthly reports. That's how it's been set up now in terms of how those funds are being used. And those funds for the theater would be used for advertising and also production of their actual shows. The Museum of International Cultures, you can see last year they were awarded about just over $55,000, and that included for the hosting of events and activities and advertising at the center itself, the museum, as well as the sign that you all know about that looks great on Highway 67. So they're not requesting, obviously, any more signage. They were awarded $24,800. They have requested $40,000, and staff recommends $30,000. And I've visited with all the applicants, and the reason why the reduction for the museum was the $10,000. $5,000 comes from it because one of the requests they made was for $5,000 for their outdoor garden or walkthrough, historical walkthrough that they want to do. And really what that category is for restoration, historic restoration. And this would be a creation of an outdoor historic setting. And so that doesn't really qualify. The other $5,000 they had requested was to be a visitor center. And as you know, the council, you've already approved the Chamber of Commerce as the official visitor center, and we do pay them to perform that function as well. I did not include the visitor center, as you can see up here. Last time we talked about it, I did not include that. It is a separate contract, and that does expire in November. So you will be seeing that at a later date. I'll bring that back to council for consideration at that time. But so with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions that you have, and then also the applicants are here tonight, and they'll be happy to answer any further questions that you might have.
Councilman LeBlanc.
I don't really have a question, I just a request, and I guess it's mainly directed at the director of the Great American Shootout, because, you know, as the mayor said, we're going to have cities, hotels stretched from one end to the other, some in the city, some out of the city, that are going to have people participating in this. And I think the report that we got or we saw had the income or the dollar amount that it impacted the community. And I would like to see more of how it impacts Duncanville specifically, because that was kind of a broad thing, knowing that, because, you know, they stay here, but we know because of the limited amount of restaurants, they all don't eat here. So we want to know, I would like to know just more detail about the impact of what it has on the city of Duncanville.
Councilwoman Thomas.
The Museum of Culture, the $5,000 for the garden, they do have the land there. They have done things on it they've had a teepee on it. It does have trees, and this is a museum that, should it cease to be, it goes to the city. I mean, so this is essentially city property. So I would personally think that it would qualify for the restoration, because it's something. It's land. They've used it for other things, and they're going to repurpose it.
So I would like to see the $5,000 put back on it. Now, the visiting center, I can see that, but I would like to see that property improved. And like I said, when you're improving it, you're not improving something that's private. It's a nonprofit that essentially the city owns underlyingly.
I think Councilmember Thomas, in the law, when it refers to historical restoration or preservation, what I have seen that for is basically like older houses that are restored, that people come through and visit, or older buildings. That kind of historical preservation and restoration is what the law is really about. So that's why, as Jessica said, this doesn't really, even though it's a historical garden, is what they're wanting to do, but it doesn't fit within the definition of the law of what historical preservation and restoration funding is under the hotel occupancy tax.
Okay, so would it fit under another?
A different category?
Another,
I don't think so.
for the attorney, would it fit under another category?
I'm reviewing the categories. Potentially, maybe a promotion that attracts tourists, maybe. But my concern would be the heads and beds aspect of it. I think where it's close on one category, but it's going to be a real stretch on the second category, would make me uncomfortable to advise that it would really fit as a project, because I don't think that it would satisfy the heads and beds aspect, and it's questionable in terms of whether it would really be considered a promotion that attracts tourists.
Is it possible that we could get that looked into, just that aspect of it, that $5,000, and see if we bring it back at another meeting?
This is something that I did discuss with Bob directly when we met this week in terms of whether it qualified or not. So we have.
Bob, you're talking about the city attorney?
Yes, sir. I mean, yes, ma'am. I apologize. Yes,
No,
ma'am.
that's fine.
Yes, ma'am. And so at that point, we agreed that it did not qualify.
I'd like to see it worked on a little more also, because I know the TP, I've talked to her about that, and that does bring in, and as far as heads and beds, it does bring in people.
They do
I
have
saw a
heads
whole
and
room
beds.
full of people from, that were from different country that were here, and
I think the distinction, though, is that this particular aspect, the garden itself, would have to be the thing that's bringing more people to the city, not just the museum.
Yes, and I know that Mary Faye Cam, who's the director, has been working on this. She's actually talking with the embassies and that are in this area, and she has connections, and they will, like a Korean part of it, the Korean government will help design that and fund it. And like the Japanese part, they will help fund that. So what I'm saying is that there's a grand plan. We just need to get it started. And when you go, and it's on 67, and when you're going down 67, you'll see this, and you'll have people stop in Duncanville because it's right there, and they'll see it. And when she puts that teepee out, it's, I don't know, 30 feet tall, she gets a lot of stop-in visitors. And I do know that she's great at marketing. She's in all the travel brochures that everybody puts out, all the trails and things. And she'll have people, like, just anecdotally, I know of this lady who was staying in Dallas. She got it. She's from Japan. She had her kids. Her husband was having a meeting. She went through the museums, and so she rented a car and drove to Duncanville to see the Museum of Culture. So, and that happens a lot at this museum because Mary Faye is really good at marketing that place. And so, like I'm saying, it's as far as heads and beds, we know that they have international and people who come and stay, and we also know that people will plan their trips to stay in Duncanville when they're driving through Texas and go to that museum because she markets it. And so, I think that it would be an asset to develop that area. It's just a plot of ground, and like I said, she already has contacts with these embassies that will help develop that. So $5,000 is just a drop in the bucket to get it started, and then once that gets started, she can start bringing these people in to work on their vision of their area in this garden. And it's not historical, it's more international. Each each little area will have a theme as far as a country or a people group.
Based upon what our attorneys have told us tonight, the report from Bob and what Alexis has said, I would suggest that we leave it at 30, and we can always add another 5,000 if through discussion and Mary Fay coming up with the plan that would justify coverage under the law that we operate under, we can always add it in.
I think that's reasonable.
Are you through, Ms. Thompson? Your light was still on. Okay, we have a motion and a second on the floor. Seeing no further lights, will you please vote? Okay, thank you.
Mayor, I move that we accept this.
We already had a motion.
Who made the motion?
Hmm?
Who made the motion? I don't think anyone made the motion.
Did we not have a motion and a second on this? City Secretary? Oh, we did not. My mistake. Okay, you made the motion. Do we have a second?
I need a second.
Second.
All right, will you please vote now? I'm gonna have to get me a little card, though. Okay, thank you. Item number D is to consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, authorizing approval of an economic development performance agreement by the Duncanville Community and Economic Development Corporation, DCEDC, to 10 Hagen Excavating, Inc. for actual costs not to exceed $48,000 for a masonry screening walls on the north side and the west side of their new corporate headquarters in order to expand their business located at 1211 South Alexander Avenue in Duncanville, Texas.
Thank you, Mayor. As the mayor just stated, 10 Hagen has made a request to the DCEDC for $48,000 to assist them with the masonry screening walls that will be needed in order for them to expand their business on Alexander. 10 Hagen is a third-generation excavating business that services the excavation needs of companies across the DFW area. They have been in business since 1971 here in Duncanville, and they've completed over 2,000 projects across the Metroplex. You can see here this is actually where their current building is, the one that we just spoke about, and this pad site right here is where they will be building their new corporate headquarters and expanding their business. The two white lines there and on the north side and the west side, that is a requirement by our code that they do have to build new screening walls. On the other side of those walls are residential, is a residential neighborhood and lots. This is a picture of what they are proposing in terms of the look and the two-tone finish of the screening walls. And they will be, the texture that you see or the finish out that you see on this side, that'll be the same both on their side as well as the residential side, which will be a really nice addition to that area. I don't know if you've all driven through there lately, but there's fencing up there now and it doesn't look the best. So this would be a great improvement to the value of the entire area. On June 8th, 2017, the EDC unanimously approved a grant for the actual cost not to exceed the $48,000 for masonry screening walls, as I pointed out, on the north and west side. 10 Hagen did get 3 bids, and you'll see that was one of the requirements that the EDC did put on the grant, but they did receive the 3 bids. It's 620 linear feet, and those are the 3 bids. Superior Concrete Products, $57,660. Permacast was $60,286.99. They can't forget the 99 cents. And then Hot Construction was $70,680. In terms of the the grant itself and the terms and the conditions, as I said earlier, the building and the entire 620 linear feet of the north and west screening walls must be built at the same time. Because as you can see or note, the board did approve $48,000, but that does not cover the entire cost to do both of those walls. The screening walls must be 6 feet tall, and that's in accordance with city codes. They must meet all city codes and ordinances, and constructed of a neutral color precast concrete with a decorative stamp, that's what we talked about earlier, masonry pattern that is approved by the city of Duncanville. In addition, 10 Hagen Excavating Inc. will be responsible for the additional cost associated with the construction of the walls, and that's just what I pointed out. A concrete masonry unit, or CMU, screening wall is not acceptable. Basically, a cement block wall is not acceptable. Continuing on, 3 quotes must be submitted, which they've met that requirement. And they must receive their certificate of occupancy for the building and inspection approval for the masonry walls within 16 months from the time that the city council approves the grant. The grant will be paid upon the installation, completion, and issuance of the City of Duncanville Building Inspection Certificate of Occupancy, along with the inspection of the fence. And as always, we have included a clawback provision in the event that 10 Hagen does not comply with the terms of the DCEDC agreement or otherwise defaults. 10 Hagen shall refund the DCEDC the amount equal to the sum of the grant payments actually paid within 30 days, or interest will be charged until grant payments are paid back. So looking at the overall economic impact, and this is something that, as you know, that we work very hard to try to do, is review that impact to the community and to the area. Impact Data Source, which is our third party, as you all know, conducted a 10-year economic impact analysis of the project. The study concluded that if the DCEDC's $48,000 incentive was granted, then the city would have an approximately 4-year payback period, which is a very short turnaround time on recapturing our funds. 10 Hagen will invest approximately $650,000, as the city manager noted earlier, with the land and the building for the new headquarters. They will retain 28 jobs and potentially add 11 more jobs over the next 10 years. So as you can see, this is a great opportunity for us to assist a local business that's been here since 1971, expand and keep their headquarters here locally. So with that, I'll be happy to answer any questions. And also, Sherry and Scott 10 Hagen are here this evening, and they would be happy to answer any questions that you might have as well.
Councilwoman Jameson.
I think that they ought to take this opportunity to tell us about themselves.
What all would you like to know? went from first grade to graduated here, and
yeah, we both did. Well, I actually moved here in the 5th grade, but I still graduated here. We have 2 children. Our oldest graduated here in 2006, so we're a long time Duncanvilleites. Our company's been, his parents started a company in 1971 over off of Main Street. Then they moved over to South Alexander in 1977, and we incorporated in 1978. His parents, we are 2nd generation. He took over in 2010 or 2011, where we officially became the owners. And we want to see, right now we've outgrown our building. We have an office building and we have a shop that's right just adjacent on adjacent properties. We own the 4 adjacent properties right across the street. That's where we want to build our new building. Our new building is going to be 8,500 square foot. 4,000 square foot of that is going to be office space. For the other remaining will be warehouse space. Right now, we're in an office that's about 1,500 square foot. So this is a big deal for us. We're including a wellness center for our employees to use as they can, so we can promote good health and wellness in our employees. I don't know what else.
What's the plan for the existing building?
And we're just really wanting to kind of stay right there in that area. We love the area, 67, and I like the idea. I wouldn't have a problem if they wanted to come over there and start redeveloping us. But no, we're looking forward to building there, and we've already been approached about buying the house to the south of us. She's up in age, and we're just gonna keep moving down. And when we looked at doing this, the lots they're 4 individual lots. And we're only required to build the screening wall on the lot that they were developing. So that would look kind of odd. So through some people that she knew said we need to get with the economic development, and they said they might be able to help you with some of that stuff. So that's how we did it. So we through that, and they came back. We all kind of got to the number, the 48 and whatever. And so he said, well, we'd be willing to go ahead and just do the whole thing so we don't have a hodgepodge of walls that get developed and be different colors and stuff. So we're looking at Tenhagen. We're going to furnish the manpower through this contractor that she found is willing to let us use let them use our equipment and use our operators to offset some of the costs. And so we'll be buying some implements to go on our tractors to do some stuff. So we'll probably be looking at doing an additional 20 to 25,000 on and above, but it'll make it look complete, where it'll just come around. And then the next lot, if we purchase it from the lady next door, it's 50 foot, so that's only 50 foot, so I don't think the wall will, if we just keep moving down. So hopefully, keep moving dirt, and hopefully y'all develop, because we'd sure like to just move up there and start demoing businesses and helping y'all develop that.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Second. I have a question. This is, I guess, Jessica, you can come. The slide that you had, the actual picture of the, now, that wall is that built by, I guess, the code of the ordinance that's in place now for businesses that, I guess, border residents, or was that something that we did just for them?
No, it's in place. In fact, that was something that staff worked on earlier this year, because what that offers is it offers a lower cost option for businesses while still meeting the needs and the code. And so, no, this is to code. Yes,
okay,
sir.
and so if you go to the next slide, you talked, I think you said something about not being concrete, not being masonry.
Oh,
So,
yes,
no.
in terms of just a concrete block
Right,
wall. Yes, sir. That is not allowed, and that's one thing that the board very much stipulated. They could do that.
Okay.
They could do that, but that's something that the board said that if they approved the grant, that they did not want to allow.
So the ordinance said they could do that, but
Essentially, I mean, they don't have to do this type of a decorative wall, so
Okay.
it has to be a masonry wall.
it has to be a masonry wall, okay. And that's in place now?
That is correct, yes, sir.
All right. That's it. Looks good.
It's a lot better than PDOT block.
Yeah, exactly.
Essentially, they're going above and beyond, if that's your question.
Councilwoman Thomas.
Hi, I'm Leslie. I'm your council person for that area. And I just want to say that I drive down Alexander all the time, and y'all have just been, I've just noticed, I get bigger and bigger stacks of stuff. Y'all are being busy over there.
Yeah, we stay pretty busy.
Yeah, well, thank you for staying in Duncanville. Thank you for making it better here.
Oh, you're welcome. We enjoy it here.
Okay, well, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Well, I put out an M for motion, but I don't have an S for second here. Oh, did you? Okay, all right. We got a motion and a second. I'll get the hang of this before too long. Okay. Seeing no further lights, will you please vote? Okay, thank you. Item number E is to consider resolution number 2017-052, repealing the sunset provision of resolution number 2015-020-326 and establishing the Neighborhood Vitality Commission.
Mayor and Council, as we discussed with you at your June 20th council meeting, as you recall, in early 2015, the City Council established 4 new commissions. All of those were established with a sunset provision of August 30th of 2017. So we had a discussion with you about whether you wanted to continue those 4 commissions or let them sunset. Based on your direction and discussion at that meeting, the Neighborhood Vitality Commission was one of the commissions that you desired to continue. So that resolution 26 was the one that originally established the Neighborhood Vitality Commission, and their mission was to educate citizens on civic responsibility to sustain housing value, preserving the character of the 1940s and 50s housing stock, and also to serve as a land bank. And as I mentioned, they are set to expire on August 30th unless extended. As we discussed with you, one of the City Council's main capstones is also to create high-quality neighborhoods and parks. And so the mission of the Neighborhood Vitality Commission fits into that role. We also talked with you about what the Neighborhood Vitality Commission has accomplished over the past 2 years, and they've become very involved with First United Methodist Duncanville on a property improvement project, and that has been a very successful partnership between nonprofit, between the church community, the public sector, and some private businesses as well in renovating and working on houses for low-income or elderly citizens who do not have the capabilities of doing that themselves. And that is, they have done 3 different weekend projects so far. And also that is developing into a 501c3 partnership, and which will help it grow and be able to take donations. And so the Neighborhood Vitality Commission has been very involved in working with them on that goal. They also worked with the Hollywood Park neighborhood last year and with Public Works to address some traffic concerns on Cockrell Hill. And we put some sign marking or some pavement markings in place, as well as some signal lights to help keep traffic from blocking that intersection and allow better ingress and egress for that neighborhood. And then finally, the Neighborhood Vitality Commission has also been working on a program to look at sign toppers for neighborhoods throughout Duncanville to help the neighborhoods establish an identity and take pride in their neighborhoods, and again, further that the sense of pride in Duncanville and maintain our neighborhoods. In discussion with the commission members prior to the June 20th meeting with council, the commission also desired to maintain their status and continue as a viable commission. And as I mentioned, we discussed this with you at the June 20th meeting. So this resolution 2017-052 will repeal the sunset provision resolution and establish the Neighborhood Vitality Commission with the same goals as the previous resolution, but also adding to that, seeking ways to further that goal of creating high-quality neighborhoods and parks, so making it essentially a more general mission as well for the commission. We are recommending that the commission be established with 7 members. Currently there are 5. We recommend 7 members, and then with the initial appointments, that 3 be appointed to 1-year terms and the remaining 4 be appointed for 2-year terms, and thereafter 2-year terms on a staggered basis. The commission members must be residents of the city of Duncanville, and they will be required to attend the meetings, and 3 unexcused absences would be cause for removal, and they will elect a president and vice president from that commission. With that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Councilwoman Thomas.
Yes, Mayor, I would like to recognize the members on this committee. They are a fantastic committee. I'm the liaison. I get to see them up close. They came into this new committee and they made it their own. They were aggressive in going to not only to town hall meetings, but also to neighborhood meetings. They are very thoughtful and created the PIP days. They volunteer their own time. If you knew what these committee members do, they probably spend more time than the council members do in working in the neighborhoods and going to the meetings and creating meetings to find out what the neighborhoods need and what they would like it to represent. So the president is Brenda O'Brien. Fantastic, energetic, thoughtful. We're just so fortunate to have her involved. Jeff Burton, Dr. Miner, Walter Rim, and Rollo Thompson. These are great people. They've made this committee the success that it is, and I just wanted to have a shout out to them.
Thank you. Seeing no further lights, Chair will entertain a motion.
I move to approve.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Will you please vote? Thank you. Item number F is to consider a resolution of the City Council of the City of Duncanville, Texas, repealing resolution number 2015-020327 regarding the Duncanville Social Engagement Partnership and replacing with this resolution establishing partnership, providing for a mission statement, membership, duties, and attendance, providing a repealing clause, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. As you have noticed, the Social Engagement Partnership was established with Resolution 2015-020327, and the mission of this partnership was to engage 6% of the community, develop image of family-oriented community, develop brand for community of basketball capital of Texas, leverage brand to enhance sports tourism, engage citizens between 18 and 30 years of age. And as City Manager Hugman has said, this one is also set to expire on August 30, but is up to the council to extend that. Along with the city capstone, this one falls in line with the most engaged citizens in America. Some of the accomplishments of the partnership, they have worked with the PIO position to help with the redevelopment of the website, launch the Facebook page, as well as having input and on other social media aspects such as Snapchat, Instagram, Pinterest. They've come up with a lot of great ideas and are very enthusiastic about what we can do for outreach within the community. Additionally, they have had participation and a presence at city events such as the parade, the Flavor of Duncanville, and they helped with the survey of the 2016 election. With resolution number 2017-059, they would keep in line with the current mission, but they would add, as you can see right here, to include promote citizen participation and engagement in government and to foster cooperative relationships among diverse citizens in order to fulfill the needs and desires in Duncanville's diverse community. This commission previously had 7 commission members. It is our recommendation to add or to increase that to 9 commission members, with 5 2-year terms and 4 being 1-year terms, and then staggered thereafter. Again, the commission members must be members of the City of Duncanville. The other provisions would include, as to mimic some of the others, that they do need to have a regular attendance at the meetings, and if they miss more than 3 meetings, there could be some dismissal from that commission. And it will have the officers, there will be a president and vice president of the commission. Previous discussion, some of the new items going into the mission have come from incorporating from the multicultural committee or commission into the social engagement partnership, because as you can see in the gray, there is some overlapping of things that both of the commissions have done, and we felt that we could incorporate that into the social engagement partnership, which, as you can see right here, are the items in bold. So at this time, I'd entertain any questions or discussion.
Seeing none, the chair will entertain a motion.
Move approval.
Is there a second? Okay, seeing no further lights, will you please vote? Okay, thank you. Item number G is to consider a resolution providing a repealing clause to the Duncanville Community Multicultural Commission, the DCMC.
Thank you, Mayor, City Council. As City Manager stated in the briefing session, as well as Cody just a few minutes ago, this is a companion piece to the previous item, and that is to discontinue the Duncanville Community Multicultural Commission. The chart that Cody just showed in her presentation is just broken out here into bullet points, but essentially this highlights the overlap between the two commissions or committees, again, as discussed by the city manager at the June 20th meeting. The primary overlap is being the engagement of citizens in various ways. Since its inception, and that was in 2009, the Duncanville Community Multicultural Commission has really struggled to clearly define their kind of vision as to what they wanted to accomplish. And this can be attributed to a number of factors, which we won't go into today. But it really has contributed to the fact that we've had a high turnover rate on the commission, as well as we've had a real struggle with getting quorum for meetings. So with that, I'll answer any questions that you might have.
Councilwoman Thomas?
If I may have ask Councilmember Patrick LeBlanc, you voted against the Neighborhood Vitality Commission because you're upset that this one's going away. Am I off base on that?
No, it was a social engagement.
Social engagement,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's exactly right, because I worked with Bart on this commission. I was a part of this commission for years, and as he said, the majority of the reasons why we couldn't get on track is because we were waiting for direction from the council that we never got. And there was a meeting before City Manager Hugman got here with mayor, council, over at the library, and at that time we were supposed to get direction. That never happened. So that in turn caused people to lose interest and got discouraged, including myself, because we're coming up here, we're meeting, we're trying to see what we're supposed to do. And I just think because of the title, and we have all these things on our website about us being an inclusive community, but we're going to dissolve the Multicultural Commission. And I just don't think that's right.
Mayor, I have a suggestion. Before, I'd like to preface it. The Multicultural Commission was at the request of Dorothy Burton, the first African-American council person on Duncanville City Council. And she's also dear to my heart, and I would hate to see one of her landmark commissions just be dissolved. And what my suggestion is that we move the word multicultural and we insert it in front of social engagement. So the committee will be Multicultural Social Engagement Partnership. And I wonder if that would be acceptable to the council. Because we are conflating the responsibilities. The responsibilities of the Multicultural Committee, they're not going away, they're just going to the Social Engagement Committee. So that would reflect that this committee still lives on in this second committee.
And I'm not opposed to that. I guess what I'm struggling with is how did this commission that was started or founded after the Duncanville Multicultural Commission get direction and support, and the Multicultural Commission never could?
I think because most of us are new, it's from people that weren't here before.
All right. Good.
I've been involved with the commission since 2015. When I got here in 2013, Claudia Garibay was the liaison, and she had confided with me on several occasions when we made the transition that even in her tenure that they've always struggled. I think it's been since its inception, really in 2009, which I really can't speak to. Maybe some others can. That it was never, and it really initiated in the beginning. So I'm not sure it's been established. So that's where we really struggle.
Okay, how you can do that is that you can move adoption with a change in the name to the new name.
Yeah. So Mayor, I move that we approve the resolution, but insert multicultural in front of social engagement partnership.
think since we've already approved that item, we can't really go back and amend it now, but we can bring it back at the next meeting as an amended resolution.
When did we approve the item?
We just approved the social engagement partnership. It was,
We haven't
it's a
voted
separate
on that.
item.
Social engagement?
The social
partnership?
engagement was item F.
F?
And item G is the multicultural commission.
Oh, okay,
So
okay.
since we've already-
So since I voted for that, I move, I can't do it right. Is there a motion on the floor right now?
No.
So I move that we reconsider agenda item number E. No, agenda item number F, multicultural.
Okay, well, let's go ahead and finish G, and
We
then we
can't do
can go
that?
back and do, yeah.
Okay.
Let's finish G, and then we can go back and do, and work on F, if that's what everybody wants.
Wait a minute. I don't think we have to go back. All I'm doing is, I'm moving, okay, G. I'm moving to approve the Duncanville never mind. Yes, we can. Never mind.
Okay. Item number G is consider a resolution providing for a repealing clause to the Duncanville Community Multicultural Commission. Chair will entertain a motion.
Move to approve.
Second.
Second.
Okay, motion to second. Any further discussion? Please vote. Okay. Now,
Mayor, if I may, I move to reconsider agenda item number F, please. And that's what it is. I need a second.
okay, there's a motion on the floor to reconsider item F, so we will vote on that at this time. To reconsider, in other words, we're going to reopen F. So this is the motion to reopen F. Will you please vote? Okay. Now, going back to item F, since we're reconsidering it, the chair will entertain a motion for any changes to be made.
Yes, sir. Mayor, I move that we insert the word multicultural in front of social engagement partnership as the title of the commission,
Okay.
whatever it is.
That's a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Please vote. Okay, thank you. Okay, item number H is to appoint a member to the Duncanville Sister City Commission to fill a vacancy. We, in discussion in our earlier meeting, we're going to defer that, this item H, until the next meeting, so that we'll have time to examine the applicants for it. So it will be rescheduled for the meeting on August 1.
Mayor, I move that we postpone that to August 1st.
Okay? Second. There's a motion and a second. Will you please vote? Okay. Item number I is to consider appointment of city council members as liaisons to the various boards and commissions, including the Planning and Zoning Commission, Board of Adjustment, Duncanville Community and Economic Development Corporation, Park and Recreation Advisory Board, Library Advisory Board, Sign Control Board, Keep Duncanville Beautiful Board, Social Engagement Partnership, Duncanville Neighborhood Vitality Commission, Duncanville Senior Advocacy Commission, the Tax Increment Financing Reinvestment Zone Number 1, and the Tri-City Animal Shelter. Again, we're going to defer.
Mayor, I move that we postpone that to August 1st.
Okay. Second. There's motion and second to defer until August the 1st. Further discussion? Please vote. Okay, thank you. Item number 6 are staff and board reports. Receive the monthly financial report as of May 31, 2017.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This report is as of the end of May, and at the end of May, we expect all our budgeted revenues and expenditures to have a benchmark of about being at 67%. Our general fund ending reserve fund balance is at $12 million. That's approximately 153 days. I like to remind people that we receive those revenues in early in the year because of property tax, and so it's not unusual to have a higher fund balance because we're continually spending that down as the expenditures catch up with the revenues throughout the year. So that fund balance is in excess of the 75-day fund reserve by about $6.1 million. But again, that money is being spent on a month-to-month basis. Our property taxes are at about 99% of their budgeted amount. Again, that's what's driving that general fund balance to be so high, because those generally come in during the months of November, December, and January. Sales tax revenues running about 7% higher than it was the same time last year, and that's through March, because we're 2 months in arrears on receiving sales tax. Our building permits, they've surpassed our adopted budget by about 183%, and that's due to new building houses and hotel permits. Overall, our general fund expenditures and transfers out are at 62% of the budget, so we're running just a little bit below that benchmark, which is a good place to be. If we look graphically at our general fund revenues, you can see that I always do the purple line as a straight line budget, as if everything were incurred evenly over time. And then the blue line shows the previous three-year average. And then the red line plotted out is the actuals, what we've received through May, and then the extenuation of that red line via the green line is where we anticipate to end the end of the fiscal year. If we laser out our property tax revenues, they perform accordingly. As I said, we primarily get stuff in during November, December, January, and taper off in February and then throughout the rest of the year. So it's not unusual to be at 98, 99% this time of year of collecting those revenues. And then we look at our general fund revenue sales tax. Laser that out, you can see that that's following right along the trend line. And we expect that we will probably end the year a little above budget. And then we look at our general fund expenditures, and you see those trailing along that straight line for most of the months and then dropping below. And so we're right now trending below, and if things go well, we will continue to trend below or meet up with that straight line at the end of the year. Our utility fund outlook, unreserved fund balance is at $5.6 million, which is 121 days of operations, and that's about $2.8 million in excess of the 60-day fund reserve. Our water and sewer rate increases were adopted in October of 2016, and so they're about 11% higher than they were the same time last year, mostly due to that rate increase. And we run 1 month in arrears on utility fund. So if you look at the revenues, you see the same thing as on the general fund. You see how the revenues start out below, but they're trending up as we get into the warmer months, and we're earning higher revenues. And if you look at the expenditures, they're staying well below the trend line, and we anticipate to continue having those below the trend line throughout the end of the year. And then we look at our innovation fund projects, those things that are in yellow, they're highlighted in yellow or essentially complete, and we still have other projects that are yet to be worked on or yet to be completed. And with that, I'll entertain any questions.
Do you anticipate that all those on the innovation fund will be done at the end of the fiscal year?
Probably not. There'll be a number of things that will probably get completed, but I don't think all of them will be completed. There'll probably be some that go over into fiscal year 18.
But some of them were projected not to be completed this year. That's why you have the Innovation Fund, because some of them are multi-year projects. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Item number 6B is the library quarterly report.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. I am Hannah Olson, the Technical Services Librarian, and this is Stephanie Lott, our Adult Services Librarian, who is with me. And yep. Right, as far as staffing and personnel, we do have 2 changes. We had a full-time staffer leave us in June suddenly, and so one of our part-timers was promoted to full-time, and then we have a new part-timer to fill her position, scheduled to start August 21st. As far as our, oh, this is the wrong. Okay, one moment.
Anyway, as far as our non-work plan accomplishments, there was a Food for Fines event in May that benefited the Duncanville Outreach Ministry. We also had, I'm sorry, y'all could probably hear me anyway, I talk kind of loud. Let's see, what else did we have? The Food for Fines event. We also have started an adult summer reading club program. I'm sorry, I'm trying to remember what we wrote. The spring clean-out event, which we did in partnership with the, remind me what department that was? Several other departments.
Right now we are in the midst of our summer programming, which is really great this year, and that the numbers, as far as like changes fiscal year to date last year versus this year, I'll talk about that in a little bit, but they're good. They're trending upward for our programs. We had 2,000 people come to summer programs so far in June. There were like 2,000 people, which is awesome. And yes, last but not least, well, I believe you'll remember Dennis Quinn on his last quarterly report. Due to many different things, we are still here. Bart Stevenson is the interim library director, and he's been wonderful. Stephanie and I have been doing various things, but we've also had some other staffing shortages that we've been working through during our busiest time. So
far we have managed to survive without
yes, we are surviving. We are not even surviving, we are thriving. So there's also that. All right, this is the actual work plan items, and these slides look like the updated ones. The collection development plan is complete. The inventory is going slowly due to other things happening, high priorities, shorter staffing. We've slowed it down during the summer, but we are almost done with that. So we're looking forward to completing that. The local modifications have been postponed. We are looking at doing standardized test prep classes.
Including GED courses.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking for a math tutor to do part of that, and we're outlining the course options for the different subjects of the GED tests.
Yes, Librarian on the Loose is available. Homebound delivery service is available, not broadly used at the moment, but available. We are continuing to work on creating events and exhibits celebrating the various cultures, ethnicities, and heritages. Those are some examples of ones that we have done so far, but that is an ongoing thing. The laptops and hotspots are both circulating. The hotspots basically just stay constantly checked out. There's maybe 1 or 2 available at a time, which is fantastic. That was the second part of the project. This is one of the innovation funds. The laptops have been circulating since February. 15 circulate outside the building, 5 in the building. And then the hotspots, we have 10 of those. The STEAM-related events and enrichment opportunities are another one that's complete and ongoing. And STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. We do have a gardening plot, and we are growing things in it, so that is very exciting. And there are some other ones that we're still working on. Okay, so these numbers are not correct. But I can tell you how we're doing fiscal year to date compared to this. Oh.
And our wonderful interim director, Bart, has saved the day.
Yes, so the library visits are actually 1,021,343 year to date, which is up almost 4,000 from last year this same time. Circulation is in the 70,000s, and that is down slightly. It's like 1,800 down. Interlibrary loans is about the same as it was. 45 received, 174, or 34 received, 148 lent this year. New members added fiscal year to date for this year is 1,563. New materials added is 3,362. This is a decrease from last year at this time of 1,500, which I think is partly attributable to a lower book budget this year, 100,000 instead of 125, and then also, again, staffing means that's something that can slow down, and so that's slowed down some. We have offered 292 programs, events, and classes this fiscal year to date, which is up 72 from last year. The attendance this year to date is 9,287 for those programs, which is up 1,400 from last fiscal year at the same time. So the programs continue to expand, which is fantastic to see. Computer logins and hours are roughly the same, 22,652 for computer use logins and 17,478 hours and 19 minutes of time spent on those public computers. That is just the in-house computers, not the Wi-Fi. Reference transactions are 7,495, and volunteer hours are 1,202 hours, 25 minutes.
And I just want to clarify that reference transactions basically means someone coming up and asking us a question, and that number is probably actually a little low because many times we get so busy answering questions that we forget to write them down.
All right. Our upcoming events are Tuesday the 25th is the Friends of the Library meeting. Tuesday, 25th of July, sorry. Saturday, July 29th, the Friends of the Library are having a $5 bag of books sale. Monday, July 31st is the last day of both our Children's Summer Reading Club and our Adult Summer Reading Club, which was a new program this year. It is also Harry Potter's birthday, and so we are showing the movie Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them that evening. That evening. Yes. August is a quiet month. That's when we slow down. So the only big thing for our events then is August 24th, the book club meets. And then in September 7th is the next Library Advisory Board meeting. Our fall programs start the week of the 11th, and the book club again is on the 28th. So that is it. Sorry for the mishap on the slides. Are there any questions?
Councilwoman Jameson.
Yes, the math tutor for the GED, is that paid or volunteer?
We are hoping to find someone who will volunteer for us.
Ah.
How about you? Know any calculus or algebra?
Seeing no further lights, and since this was the last item on our agenda tonight, it is now 9:08, and the council will stand adjourned.